Chapter 853. Gong Dai was somewhat surprised. Do you know what I want you to do? How could he agree so easily without even thinking about it? Gong Che shook his head. There's no need. The best method is for me to take the position of Crown Prince once more and eradicate my dissidents so that I can be your shield. Gong Dai hadn't expected him to be so clear about what he wanted. That's right, he had been planning this from the very start. Ever since he discovered that the water cloud grass was of great use to Gong Che, he had no choice but to connect the two and speculate that Gong Che's illness could be cured with the water cloud grass. The strange thing was that Gong Che knew that his illness could be cured, yet he still withdrew from the War of the Princes. From this perspective, there could only be two reasons. First, he was retreating in order to advance. He wanted to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight before reaping the benefits. Second, he was afraid. After all, apart from his direct bloodline, Gong Che had nothing else. Thus, he had used his illness to withdraw from the War of the Princes to save his life. After observing for a year, he realized that Gong Che had decided to cooperate with him because of the latter. Gong Che's final request was also very interesting. It seemed that he really did not care about fame or fortune. Seeing Gong Dai remain silent, Gong Che felt uneasy. He was afraid that Gong Dai would not agree, even though he believed that Gong Dai had no reason to refuse. Gong Che took a deep breath and calmly said, "You still have the Li clan to support you. As for me, even if I become emperor, I will have no internal support and no external help. I will find it difficult to advance. But if I help you, the outcome will be different." Gong Dai looked at him with great interest, indicating that he should continue. Under the night sky, Gong Che leaned against a tree as he continued to speak coldly. "The reason I'm helping you is because I value your potential. Once you succeed, it will be a meritorious service. If you're worried that I'll fight with you, there's no need for that. I know very well that I'm not suited to be an emperor." He paused for a moment. "Moreover, I originally didn't want to interfere in this matter. I'm about to get married, and my wife and I both yearn for the life of the martial world. But since you've come to me, I have no other choice. So, I only have this one request. If you agree, you must help me with all your strength and be honest with me." Gong Dai said hoarsely, "By then, can you really give up the power and position that you are about to get and give it away?" Gong Che was calm and collected. "If I was greedy for power, I wouldn't have exposed my hidden illness." Gong Dai suddenly smiled. "Good. I promise you." Seeing that Gong Che was straightforward, his expression was rather pleased. "After this is done, I'll set you free." Gong Che could not help but repeat himself. "It's to let me and my wife leave. It won't interfere in the affairs of the martial world. It's a deal. It's a deal." After Gong Che and Gong Dai finished speaking, they didn't linger for a moment and left under the cover of the night. Gong Dai watched as Gong Che boarded the carriage. That steady bearing was really different from before. Gong Dai's expression was rather subtle. Did Gong Che change because of that, wife? Gong Che's words repeatedly and inadvertently mentioned her. If it was really because of a woman, then he really was somewhat curious. After Gong Che boarded the carriage, he headed straight for the imperial palace. At this time, he was holding a jade box in his hand. Inside the jade box was the sincerity that Gong Dai gave him. If nothing unexpected happened, it must be the water cloud grass. Through the gap in the curtains, Gong Che saw Gong Dai's back as he turned and left. Every step he took was fast and steady, as if he was determined to get everything. He didn't know what he had lost. Gong Che closed his eyes and clenched the box in his hand. He suddenly had the thought of robbing Gong Dai's treasure. He smiled bitterly, but his expression gradually turned cold. Immerse was his. He didn't rob anyone. Immerse was his. Gong Dai, in this life, the country belongs to you. Immerse belongs to me. Helping you once is my compensation to you. With this mentality, he arrived at the imperial palace. When he saw the emperor, he directly explained his physical condition. After learning that Gong Che had found a way to treat him, Gong Qing was overjoyed and hurriedly ordered the imperial physician to study the formula of the water cloud grass. The happy event made Gong Cheng's somewhat morbid complexion look a lot better. Gong Che didn't forget that the emperor was still ill and stayed behind to express his condolences. Because he deliberately showed off, Gong Qing quickly discovered that Gong Che was different. But after not seeing him for a year, his son seemed to have grown a lot. His speech was extraordinary, and his words were meaningful. It was a world of difference from a year ago. This made Gong Qing very surprised. Because in Gong Cheng's heart, he never had the idea of changing the crown prince. But the previous crown prince was really difficult to convince the public. It wasn't that he wasn't outstanding, but he had more than enough knowledge, insufficient means, and even less ability because he lacked confidence. But this time, he came back a lot more confident. In addition, Gong Che didn't hide his private property. Gong Qing saw his son quickly become stronger and discovered that his ability was extraordinary. Unconsciously, some thoughts in his heart became active, but Gong Qing didn't say it on the spot. The father and son chatted for a while, then Gong Che went back. Although everyone knew that he was no longer the crown prince, Gong Cheng's decree at that time said that the crown prince was ill and recuperating. Moreover, it was a congenital disease. It can be said that the crown prince's position existed in name only. When there was a new crown prince, Gong Che would be replaced. But now, Gong Che was still in name, so he still lived in the East Palace. When he returned to the East Palace, it was already late at night. Gong Che washed up and went to bed. He heard the bell in the middle of the night. They had only been separated for a few days, but he felt that they had been separated for a long time. The night was as cold as water. The palace servants had all retreated. The entire palace was even quieter, so quiet that it could magnify any emotion. His body was slightly sore. Gong Che felt as if something sour was constantly drilling into his body. He could only slightly ease it by curling up his body. He really wanted he didn't know how long he would stay here. Gong Che thought that as long as he had time, he would go to Yunding Mountain to see her. But he really missed her. Gong Che thought of his previous life. It was also a lonely night like this. He endured it alone and could only rely on his imagination to get through those cold nights. At that time, wouldn't give him any response. He could only lie to himself again and again. Now, would give him a response, but he didn't dare to bring her out. He was afraid that his would eventually be snatched away by someone else. He really couldn't bear the pain of having her and then losing her again. But he really wanted to bring her out in front of others and announce to the world that she belonged to him. With the strand of hair in his arms, Gong Che couldn't help but hug the blanket and force himself to sleep. It was a quiet night, but a cold hand strangely appeared. She slowly reached into the blanket and then suddenly grabbed Gong Che's ankle. At that moment, Gong Che's body tensed up. In the next second, the dagger in his hand was pressed against the person's neck. His eyes were cold, without a trace of his usual gentleness. Chapter 854. More. In the next second, the vigilance in Gong Che's eyes turned into surprise. Gong Yimo clicked her tongue as she reached out to remove the dagger from her neck and giggled. Not bad, your reaction is very quick. This past year, I didn't teach you for nothing. Gong Che was both surprised and happy. He was surprised because how long had Immerse been with him? Had she seen Gong die? He was happy because he really missed her too much. He hadn't seen her for a full 10 days. Immerse, Gong Che's body moved faster than his mind as he dragged her from the end of the bed into his embrace. He hugged her tightly, as if he was afraid that she would run away. Gong Immerse saw that she was covered in dust and pushed him. "I'm very dirty. If you hug me like this, you'll have wasted your bath tonight." But how could Gong Che listen to anything else at this time? The person he had been thinking about day and night had appeared on his bed in the next second. Was there anything happier than this? After hugging for a long time, Gong Che slowly regained his senses and said in a depressed tone, "You naughty girl. Didn't I tell you not to go down the mountain? You clearly promised me." Gong Immerse pursed her lips. Although Gong Che was scolding her, she wasn't angry at all. She wasn't afraid at all. "If you want me not to go down the mountain, then I won't go down the mountain. I want to." Gong Che was anxious. He moved back a little and looked at Gong Immerse's eyes with disapproval. There was a fear in his eyes that he didn't realize. "Then what did you see? Have you been following me?" Gong Immerse raised her eyebrows slightly. "You seem to be afraid that I saw something." "I'm so curious." "What are you afraid of?" Immerse. Gong Che frowned and looked like he wanted to punish her, but there was nothing he could do. He was so scared that he was going crazy, but Immerse was not serious at all. She did not take it seriously at all. She didn't know. He couldn't bear the possibility of losing her, not even a little bit. Seeing that Gong Che was really panicking and his entire body was tense, Gong Immerse rolled her eyes and mercifully stopped tormenting him. Instead, she threw herself into his arms. "Because I miss you." Gong Che's body tensed up even more. Gong Immerse smiled and acted coquettishly in his arms. "I'm guessing that you'll be out for a long time this time. Although Uncle Emperor has given you many secret guards, you still lack a powerful fighter by your side, such as me. I can help you." Gong Che's hands trembled as he stroked her back. His eyes were filled with unconcealable tenderness. His Immerse, she was wholeheartedly doing it for him, but he only wanted to hide her. "I don't need you to help me. I just want you to be well and not get involved in these matters." "Immerse, you're too disobedient." Gong Immerse pursed her lips. Because she was curled up in Gong Che's arms, she did not notice how complicated Gong Che's expression was at this moment. She only spoke unhappily. "I came to look for you and you're still scolding me." "Humph. You don't miss me at all. You want me to leave, so I'll leave." Although she said that, she still firmly occupied the most comfortable position in Gong Che's arms, waiting for Gong Che to coax her. But this time, she was bound to be disappointed. Gong Che was simply too afraid. Gong Immerse was so disobedient, he was really afraid that Gong Immerse would bump into Gong Dai. The result of being too flustered was that he suddenly flipped Gong Immerse over. While Gong Immerse was still in a daze, he gave her little but a slap with a paw sound. Gong Immerse was stunned once again. It wasn't because it hurt, but because she was used to doing whatever she wanted. She never thought that Gong Che would actually dare to hit her. "You bad girl. You don't know how scared I was." Gong Che's anger was still not appeased after hitting her once. Thinking of how hard it would be for Gong Immerse on this journey and what dangers she might encounter, he became even more flustered. With a paw sound, he hit her again. Gong Immerse's face turned red. Damn it, she had never been spanked by anyone in her entire life. Gong Immerse bounced up and used her inner strength to pin down Gong Che. Her eyes were filled with shame and anger. "You bastard! You dare to hit me! I protected you the entire journey, using my Qinggong to rush over, afraid that I wouldn't be able to rush over if you met with danger. In the end, this is how you treat me. Gong Yimo got angrier the more she thought about it. She stretched out her hand and pinched Gong Che's soft flesh. Before Gong Che could cry out in pain, her nose was already sore. She was worried about Gong Che's safety and didn't dare to rest at night. She was exhausted from running around for 10 days. In the end, when she returned, Gong Che still blamed her. Forget it, she would pretend to be a good person. Humph. You bastard, don't you want me to go back? I won't go back. I want to go out and play. I won't care about you anymore. But before she could finish her words, Gong Che hugged her. Gong Yimo struggled, but Gong Che simply hugged her and rolled around, pressing her tightly under his body. Silly. Gong Che was also angry in his heart. He was angry that she didn't cherish herself, but the happiness in his heart was getting stronger. When he thought about how she had been secretly protecting him, he couldn't help but feel happy. But when he thought about how his treasure would be exposed in front of Gong Dai, he felt an inexplicable fear. He was happy, shocked, and angry, but in the end, it was still sweet. But Gong Yimo didn't want it. You only want to coax me now. It's too late. You. Let go of me. I'll count to 3. If you don't let go, I won't be polite anymore. As if I'm willing to follow you. I want to part ways with you. Her watery eyes were filled with anger and her little mouth pouted. It was really indescribable. When Gong Che heard that, he panicked. But when he saw her delicate appearance, he couldn't help but smile and lower his head to seal her lips. Little thing, you still want to part ways? Gong Yimo protested. She pouted because she was angry, not because she was asking for a kiss. Why should he kiss her? But Gong Che ignored her protest. He quickly immersed himself in her sweetness. His actions were domineering and gentle, completely encircling Gong Yimo in his territory, not giving in at all. From her lips, to her teeth, to that cute little tongue, everything was wantonly claimed by Gong Che. Soon, his eyes turned dark red. It was too dark. Gong Yimo didn't see it, but she felt it. The emotions that were originally immersed in it disappeared, and she immediately pushed him away. You lecher. Aren't you angry? Then why did you kiss me? Gong Che laughed softly. His chest vibrated, venting his joy. I'm a lecher, but climbing into her fiancé's bed in the middle of the night. What's that? He bit her nose forcefully and asked with a mischievous smile. Is a flower thief? Pfft, you're not a flower thief. Gong Yimo turned her head to the side. After this commotion, their anger had mostly dissipated. Gong Che knew that she was worried about him. Even if he was afraid just now, his tone shouldn't have been so harsh. So after his anger subsided, he said somewhat shamefully. I'm sorry. It was my fault just now. Don't be angry, okay? Gong Yimo thought that Gong Che had asked her to stay on Mount Yunding. Back then, she had agreed, but now she ran out. She was in the wrong. So after a moment of silence, she muttered. I didn't mean to disobey you, no, I'm older than you. I shouldn't be so childish. Alright, I know you're just being impatient for a moment. In the darkness, the two apologized to each other. As they spoke, they suddenly looked at each other and smiled. Chapter 856. Gong Yimo had always been waiting for an opportunity to help Gong Che. But Gong Che kept a close eye on her, as if he was afraid that she would interfere in this matter. Now that the emperor's health was getting worse, the princes were constantly moving. With Gong Dai's support, Gong Che, as the crown prince, became the biggest obstacle in everyone's eyes. Gong Dai avoided everyone's gaze and secretly operated himself. In order to protect himself, Gong Che asked the emperor for the position of commander of the imperial guards for his subordinates. But even so, Gong Che was still threatened everywhere. Poisoning his meals was a small matter. Today, he was riding a horse to patrol for the emperor, but the horse was suddenly frightened. If Gong Che had not learned some martial arts and jumped the horse in time, the consequences would have been unthinkable. But he was still injured, injuring his left leg and lower abdomen. Gong Yimo saw that Gong Che's leg was injured, his face was pale, and he was lying on the bed reading documents. She could not help but feel angry. Gong Che did not notice anything. Seeing Gong Yimo's frown, he thought that she was worried about his injury. He could not help but pull her hand to sit on the bed and gently smile. "Don't worry, Emor. It's only a small injury. I'll be fine in 2 days." Gong Yimo saw his indifferent expression, as if nothing had happened, so she could not help but glare at him. "Yes, you're fine this time, but what about next time? Do you think you're a 9 lives cat demon? You won't die." Gong Che saw that she was angry, so he quickly put down the documents in his hand and hugged her in his embrace. That smile made it seem as if hugging her meant that he already had the whole world. "All right, wife, don't be angry. I'll take good care of myself. Don't be angry, okay?" His mischievous smile made Gong Yimo very unhappy. He clearly did not realize his mistake. Gong Yimo could not take it anymore and pushed him hard. "Stop it. Are you stupid? You're already like this and you can still smile." Gong Che thickened his face and once again hugged Gong Yimo tightly in his embrace and took a deep breath. "Emor, you will never know how happy I am right now." His sigh made Gong Yimo stunned. Happy? She did not understand why Gong Che did not want anything in the end when he helped the other party. Why did he look as if he gained something? Little did she know that in Gong Che's heart, he really felt that he gained. Because he always believed that he was the one who stole Gong Ju's happiness. With this strange guilt, how could he care about the gains and losses? But she was his. Was his. But Gong Yimo did not know that. She felt unreconciled. She thought that Gong Che was controlled by the other party because of the water cloud grass. Did that mean that if she obtained the water cloud grass, Gong Che would be able to withdraw from this war? In any case, he did not want the throne. There was no need to fight for a stranger. With her own thoughts, Gong Yimo mumbled a few words and did not continue. Seeing that he had pacified her, Gong Che hugged her and continued to read his documents. He looked as if he had a wife and everything was fine. Little did he know that Gong Yimo already had her own thoughts. That night, Gong Che fell asleep. Gong Yimo carefully removed Gong Che's hand and secretly got up. She glanced at Gong Che and secretly made up her mind. She was going to steal the water cloud grass. She was now at the 4th level of wind and nature. There should not be many opponents in the world. Stealing a few blades of grass was not a problem for her. She did as she said. She sneaked out the door and knocked out the patrolling secret guards. Then, she rushed towards the direction of Qi Manor. As for Gong Che, he had a dream. It could not be called a dream. He was just reliving his previous life. On the day of and Gong Dai's wedding, Gong Che did not know what kind of mood he was in as he sat there. He only knew that because of his reckless actions, Changshi was dead. His imperial father was also dead. Rejected him once again. She was pregnant with Gong Dai's child and married Gong Dai. He was the officiator of the wedding. Why did he feel so terrible? Looking at the woman he loved, looking forward to marrying another man, he did not even have the strength to struggle. Because he had made a big mistake. Because he had recognized reality. He understood that no matter what he did, would not look at him. He could only endure and give up. Then, he smiled and gave his blessings. His heart was bleeding. Every minute and every second seemed to drain him of all his strength. Not a single bit was left, no. It was not like this. In the dream, Gong Che's brows were tightly knitted together. Was his. Was his. He had liked for so many years. His love for was definitely not any less than Gong Dai's. Yes. Was his. He had been reborn. He had returned to his previous life. He had returned to the time before all the disputes. In this life, was finally his. Gong Che finally revealed a pale smile. He reached out to hug Gong Yimo. However, he hugged nothing. A huge sense of danger made him open his eyes. He felt that the bed beside him was already cold. Had disappeared. He hurriedly got up. For a moment, he could not distinguish between the dream and reality. Could it be that he had not been reborn? Could it be that had married someone else? Could it be that he was still alone? At this time, the shadow guard also woke up. He got up and kneeled to Gong Che to beg for forgiveness. Your Highness, this subordinate is incompetent. Madam, she seems to have gone to Qi Manor. Qi Manor, Gong Dai. At that moment, a huge panic enveloped Gong Che. He practically crawled up from the bed on all fours. In the process, he almost fell down on the bed because of his leg injury. Why did go to Qi Manor? Could it be that he was not enough? Did she fall in love with Gong Dai? No. No, Gong Che forced himself to calm down. He thought of Gong Yimo's abnormal behavior today. She must have gone to steal the water cloud grass for him. Because she thought that as long as she stole the water cloud grass, she would no longer be under Gong Dai's control. This silly girl. Men. In the midst of the panic, Gong Che's voice trembled. Take people to Qi Manor. Search carefully along the way. You must bring Madam back. Go quickly. Yes. The subordinate hurriedly carried out the order. Because Gong Yimo's Qinggong was outstanding, other than a few shadow guards, no one else was affected. They led several hundred people to Qi Manor. After Gong Che hurriedly put on his clothes, he also led a group of people out of the palace. He hoped that all of this was not too late. He could not let the two of them meet. In the middle of the night, the Crown Prince's men suddenly surrounded Qi Manor. Not only was Gong Dai very surprised, even the people watching from the shadows thought that there was an internal conflict and were waiting to see a good show. Gong Che hurriedly rushed over. Gong Dai, wearing a black coat, slowly walked to the door. It was obvious that he had just woken up. His sharp eyes swept over the people in front of the door. The two sides were facing each other and there was a dangerous aura in the air. The newcomers were aggressive, as if there was something important that they had to force their way in. Imperial brother, what is the meaning of this? Gong Dai smiled coldly. Could it be that after being the crown prince for a few days, Gong Che wanted to burn the bridge after crossing the river? Chapter 857. Gong Che's expression was cold. With a wave of his hand, everyone retreated. Only he stepped forward and spoke solemnly. It was my fault for visiting so suddenly. Someone tried to assassinate me and I brought men to pursue him. Someone saw him enter Qi Manor. Gong Dai raised his eyebrows slightly. He scrutinized Gong Che for a moment before beckoning with his finger. Someone stepped forward to await his orders. Diching, where is the little rat that snuck into the manor? Gong Dai's ear-piercing voice sounded even stranger in the night. Diching was the steward of Qi Manor, and he respectfully replied. Reporting to Your Highness the Crown Prince, an assassin broke into the manor just now. His martial arts were not bad and his qinggong was nimble. Seeing that he had stolen something and was about to leave, this servant had no choice but to issue a kill order. He has already been shot to death by a flurry of arrows. His body is in the rear courtyard and will be buried tomorrow morning. At that moment, almost everyone heard the sound of something breaking. Gong Che stared in disbelief at the steward who had just spoken. Under the flickering light of the torches, his face was completely drained of color. Dead. Gong Che's voice was almost inaudible. This was simply a joke. How could Immerse die? How could she die? Gong Che wanted to laugh but he could not. In this life, Immerse's martial arts were far from the unrivaled level of her previous life. Furthermore, Gong Dai had recruited many strange people. Immerse might not be a match for them, but was that possible? If Immerse really died, if she died for him. A metallic taste flowed out from his throat. Gong Che suddenly forced his way into Qi Manor. His leg was injured and he could not exert any strength. However, his eyes were terrifyingly red. Under his oppressive aura, no one dared to block him. Gong Dai also discovered that Gong Che's situation was somewhat strange. He gave Diching a look and Diching automatically led Gong Che to the rear courtyard. It seemed that the person who had died was not an assassin but a very important person to the Crown Prince. His death would not cause the Crown Prince and the Prince to turn against each other, right? Diching thought with lingering fear. Gong Dai also felt that it was very strange. All along, he had been very suspicious of Gong Che's motives. He didn't want anything, only the water cloud grass and freedom. For these, he was willing to be his shield and promised to give up everything after the matter was done. To be honest, only a saint would be willing to give so much without asking for anything in return. However, Gong Dai was not afraid. No matter what Gong Che planned to do in the end, he believed that he would definitely be the final winner. But now, Gong Che actually revealed such an expression because of an assassin. It was as if the sky had collapsed. This was really strange. Wasn't Gong Che always gentle and amiable? In the past, it was to preserve the Crown Prince's bearing. Now, even if Mount Tai collapsed, his expression would not change. Who was that person that could make him lose his composure like this? Gong Che had never walked such a long road before. From the front door to the backyard, he limped along, his eyes staring straight ahead. However, the road seemed to have no end. It was pitch black and extended to the deepest abyss. In his bewitched state, he had already thought it through. If Immerse really died, he would kill his enemy and then die with her. He didn't cross time and space to obtain his beloved and then lose her. That kind of person's life had no meaning. However, he also hoped that the one who died wasn't her. She wasn't so weak. She would never disappoint people. Soon, he arrived at the backyard. In the middle of the yard, there was a petite corpse wrapped in a straw mat. His pupils shrank and he actually didn't dare to go forward. Diching glanced at Gong Che's frightening expression and was slightly shocked. He deliberated over his words and said softly, "Your Highness, this is the assassin who forced his way in. Because he was shot to death by arrows, his death was terrifying. Your Highness, it's best if you don't go forward." However, before he could finish, Gong Che slowly walked to the corpse. He squatted down and reached out with a trembling hand, wanting to lift the mat. At this time, Gong Dai had unknowingly followed up and asked coldly, "Imperial brother, if this person is really the one you're looking for, what will you do?" His expression was rather solemn because Gong Chai's current appearance was too abnormal. That man who was emitting a sad and ruthless aura was completely different from his usual gentleness. It was as if he was a completely different person. When the half-kneeling Gong Chai heard this, his back straightened and his fingers paused. It was unknown if it was because he was extremely tense, but he actually smiled. Without turning his head, he only said 4 words, "I won't rest until death." If Mo died, so what if the opponent was Gong Dai? Those who heard her deserved to die. Only death could appease his pain. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air because they had never thought that one day, they would hear the words, "I won't rest until death," from the modest crown prince's mouth. The fog in the night was heavy and the cold condensed, making it difficult to breathe. Everyone was silent. Just as Gong Chai was about to uncover the straw mat again, Gong Dai suddenly sneered. "Forget it, you don't need to uncover it. This prince can guarantee that the person who died is not the one you're looking for." Gong Dai's words were like a ray of light, making Gong Chai feel like he had come back from the jaws of death. He quickly turned his head and stared at him. "What makes you say that?" Gong Dai revealed a faint smile. "The only person who can make you like this, I think it's that wife who made you want to run away with her, right? The one who died is a man." Gong Chai was shocked and his hand quickly lifted the mat. The corpse was horrifying, but it was really a man. Gong Chai was so overjoyed that he forgot everything. He did not realize that Gong Dai had already noticed Gong Yimo. He was filled with joy, as if he had been reborn again. Mo was still alive. She was still alive. Gong Chai stood up and prepared to go somewhere else to find Mo. The moment he passed, Gong Dai suddenly reached out and grabbed his arm tightly. Under the weak light of the torch, the 2 equally handsome people stood together. Their gazes almost made sparks fly. "Is she the reason? Is she the reason why you selflessly helped this prince?" Gong Dai lowered his voice and asked. His expression seemed to be very interested in Gong Yimo. Gong Chai reached out and pried Gong Dai's fingers apart. "I can touch anything, but she is my bottom line." Since he had already been discovered, Gong Chai did not need to hide anymore. He seriously looked at Gong Dai with a complicated look that others could not understand. "This prince knows that you never understood why this prince helped you. Now you know. It's because she wants freedom. She likes the Jianghu. Then I need a healthy body to go with her. You want the country, so I'll help you. Because compared to her, the country is worthless." Those powerful words made Gong Dai's heart tremble. Men were born in this world, so it should be their innate ability to make a name for themselves. But Gong Chai, for a woman, he did not even care about the country. Interesting, he was becoming more and more curious about that woman. Chapter 858. Not long after Gong Chai left the Qi Manor, Gong Dai heard his subordinate Lo Qi's report. "Your Highness, someone has broken into the secret chamber. This subordinate is incompetent and allowed him to escape." Speaking of which, he could not be blamed. There were only so many guards in the Qi Manor. At the beginning, the man who had broken in had been shot to death by arrows. Later on, the crown prince had brought people over. The 2 sides were in a standoff. No one had expected that a third party would dare to fish in troubled waters. "Oh." Gong Dai glanced at Lo Qi and smiled. "What did the intruder steal?" Lo Qi said in shame, "The water cloud grass has been stolen." Gong Dai raised his eyebrows slightly. However, he was not anxious. Back then, he had paid a great price to destroy all the places where the water cloud grass grew. How could he possibly leave all the remaining water cloud grass in one place? Gong Chai's body seemed to be fine now. However, only the symptoms were treated and not the root of the problem. If he wanted to completely cure him, he would need at least 10 stalks, which was equivalent to 2 sets of medicine. Now that 5 stalks had been stolen, Gong Dai was very surprised. It seemed that Gong Che's wife's martial arts were not bad. However, it would not be so easy to obtain the remaining 5 stalks from him. After Gong Che left, he searched many places, causing the people of the capital to panic. Until someone quickly reported to him that Gong Yimo had already returned. At that moment, everyone could feel the extreme anger after Gong Che's bliss. He hurriedly rushed back, becoming angrier the more he walked. He had repeatedly ordered her not to interfere. Even if she really wanted to do something, she should not have left without saying goodbye. Did she not know that he would be afraid and worried? Gong Che clutched at his slightly aching chest. Just now, he had really been afraid that she would die. That kind of suffocating pain could not be recalled. Just thinking about it made him feel as if his illness was about to act up. Gong Che thought about a lot of things. He even thought about confining her or sending Gong Yimo back to Mount Yunding. However, when he returned and kicked open the door to the bedroom, he saw the bloodstains on the floor and the basin of blood. At that moment, all his anger stopped. He suddenly felt as if something had dug out a piece of his heart, causing him to twitch in pain. He saw Gong Yimo pull down her sleeves in a panic. The traces of bandaging were so obvious, and there was still the smell of blood in the room. Gong Yimo sat on the edge of the bed and looked at him with some annoyance. Her pale little mouth opened and closed slightly. "You. Why did you come back?" She had only been back for less than 15 minutes. Gong Che didn't say a word. He just walked closer step by step. There seemed to be black flames spreading from his body. The closer he got, the more afraid Gong Yimo felt. Finally, she lowered her head like a little wife. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be disobedient." At first, she didn't realize how powerful the other party was. After walking around like this, she realized how powerful the other party was. Today, if she hadn't been lucky and someone had sneaked in before her to steal things, she would have been the one to be shot to death by the arrows. Moreover, when she returned, she saw many people looking for someone. It was obvious that Gong Che had woken up and guessed her actions. He had come to find her. Gong Yimo then realized that she was afraid. After all, Gong Che had repeatedly emphasized before, but she had knowingly broken the rules and caused everyone to be anxious. Gong Che didn't answer. He just knelt on one knee beside her and reached out to check her wound. Gong Yimo dodged, secretly complaining in her heart. Gong Che's expression was so scary. If he found out that she was injured, he would be even angrier. However, how could Gong Che allow her to dodge? Usually, he was gentle and gentle. He was even more obedient to her. But now, he was very domineering and locked her up. Then, he slowly pulled up her sleeve. On her snow-white arm, the wound that she had hastily bandaged started to bleed again. Gong Che's pupils shrank. He held his breath and tried to untie the bandage. Gong Yimo held his hand and looked at him pitifully. "Gong Che. I'm fine. Don't look at me, okay?" Wouldn't the more he looked, the angrier he would be? Gong Che glanced at her. His eyes were pitch black like an abyss. That cold gaze made Gong Yimo's heart tremble. Her hand subconsciously loosened. The blood-stained bandage was peeled off layer by layer. A knife wound so deep that the bone could be seen lay in front of Gong Che's eyes. Gong Che's eyes instantly turned red. It was different from the dark red color when he was aroused. Now, his eyes were bloodshot. He pursed his lips as if he was enduring something. Gong Yimo swallowed. The atmosphere was too oppressive. She would rather Gong Che say a few words to her. If he really couldn't, he could just scold her. This kind of silence was too scary. So, she held his hand that was holding her arm and pretended to be happy. Don't be angry. My injury was worth it because I stole 5 stalks of water cloud grass. Is that enough? She deliberately used a relaxed tone to say, if it's enough, you don't have to be that person's shield anymore. I'm really worried about you. Before she could finish speaking, Gong Che suddenly pounced on her. In the next second, he sucked on her lips. That ferocious kiss was more like a bite than a kiss. Gong Yimo cried out in pain. But when she opened her mouth, Gong Che took advantage of her weakness. Their tongues intertwined and she felt as if her breath was being taken away. What was going on? She was almost out of breath. Gong Yimo couldn't move one hand. Her other hand was powerless to push Gong Che away. However, no matter how much she struggled, she couldn't push him away. Gong Che was like a wild beast that had been provoked. When their lips were entangled, there was a rusty taste. It turned out that Gong Yimo had bitten his lips. Gong Che was stunned. Only then did he raise his body to look at her. The tips of their noses touched. Her entire person was like a begonia flower that had been ruthlessly ravaged. Her eyes were filled with tenderness and unyieldingness as she looked at him angrily. It was great that she was still alive. She was lying under him and slowly blossoming. Gong Che lowered his head sincerely and gently sucked on her lips. His own lips were still bleeding, but he didn't feel it at all. He only carefully traced her lips over and over again. In his eyes, there was a pain that Gong Yimo couldn't understand. What's wrong? She finally realized that something was wrong with Gong Che. Even if he was angry, he shouldn't be like this. Gong Che didn't answer her. He only kissed her gently while stroking her hair. He tried his best to absorb the heat from her body as if that was the nourishment that he relied on to survive. Mor, his voice was hoarse and had a hint of pleading. Why aren't you obedient? Why aren't you obedient? He thought that she might meet Gong Dai and leave him. He thought that she might be killed by Gong Dai. From then on, they would be separated by life and death. That kind of fear was like a thin thread that wrapped around every nerve in his body. Every nerve was stretched taut, but he couldn't do anything to her. Gong Yimo didn't know how to answer. At this moment, she also felt a little guilty. She shouldn't have acted on her own and caused such a big commotion. Did you know? Someone died in Chi Manor tonight. I thought it was you. Damn it. Why did you scare me like this? Chapter 859. Gong Che's red eyes made Gong Yimo feel even more ashamed. Her eyes flickered as she looked away and said in a muffled voice, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I'll listen to you in the future, okay? Why do you want to leave me? Unfortunately, Gong Che did not listen to her at all. Some negative and dark emotions took advantage of the situation and made his eyes turn even redder. He hugged Gong Yimo even tighter. Don't even think about leaving me in this lifetime. That terrifying possessiveness made Gong Yimo tremble. She hugged Gong Che back with one hand and said pitifully, I won't leave you. She did not expect that her words would actually make Gong Che glare at her angrily. He looked at her and suddenly said faintly, Perhaps you'll only be obedient if I lock you up. His words made Gong Yimo stunned. She really did not like to be imprisoned or tied up. Gong Che narrowed his eyes. Those scarlet eyes were very dangerous as they locked onto her. He did not look like he was joking at all. I should cripple your martial arts and lock you up with me. This way, you won't be able to run away. Gong Yimo saw that he was becoming more and more demonic and could not help but become serious. Gong Che. I don't have the intention to leave you. You do. Gong Che suddenly frowned and said irritably. He arched his body and completely pressed Gong Yimo into his territory. Those demonic red eyes stared at her aggressively. His gaze slowly moved down from her neck. She seemed to have become his most delicious prey. She had nowhere to run even if she wanted to. You want to leave me. You want to find someone else. You don't like me. You never said that you liked me. He pressed harder and harder. The hatred and jealousy in his eyes seemed to have materialized. Why don't you like me? I clearly love you so much. That kind of danger followed him like a shadow. But his voice gradually became filled with sorrow. That tense body seemed to be enduring some kind of great pain. He looked at you just like that. Even though he was right in front of you, you felt like you were in hell. Gong Yimo looked at him with her eyebrows tightly knitted together. She didn't understand why Gong Che would have such an expression. It was as if he had experienced endless despair, as if he had stepped into eternal damnation. In short, he shouldn't be like this. Gong Yimo gritted her teeth, grabbed his hand and placed it on her chest. She slowly said, "Didn't I say that I like you?" Gong Che looked at her in confusion. Gong Yimo suddenly smiled. Grabbing his hand, she slowly unbuttoned her clothes. Her fair collarbone was gradually revealed, causing Gong Che's Adam's apple to move. His gaze was glued to her fair skin. Forget it. It's pointless to say what you like. You said that I don't like you and want to leave you. How about I give you my body and let you experience it for yourself? Do I like you or not? With a blink of her eyes, she suddenly turned into a soul-sucking seductress. Gong Che was still immersed in endless negative emotions, but Gong Yimo's words were like a hook that pulled him out. He couldn't help but straighten his body and take a step back. Looking at the seductress that was wantonly blooming on the bed, his mind went blank. He didn't understand why things had suddenly turned out like this. Gong Yimo slightly curled her lips and slowly got up. Her neck arched beautifully, and her incomparably seductive lips gently rubbed against Gong Che's thin lips. His body trembled, and he looked down. The moment he regained his senses, he saw the seductress in front of him who seemed to want to suck out his essence. His Adam's apple kept moving. He felt like he was pulled out of a whirlpool and then fell into another one. If I give you my body, will you believe my feelings for you? Gong Yimo looked up into his eyes with a smile that wasn't a smile. If you want it, you can take it, Gong Che couldn't control himself anymore. He bent down and hugged Gong Yimo. He frowned painfully. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I was just too scared just now. Gong Yimo said softly. I thought you would be happy. I stole the water cloud grass. I thought you would be touched. Feeling Gong Yimo's body tremble slightly, Gong Che blamed himself even more. I'm sorry, he closed his eyes. I'd rather not have the water cloud grass than bear the risk of you leaving me. You're too important to me. You'll never understand how much I love you. His feelings seemed to have been twisted. His possessiveness towards Mo had reached a terrifying level. But he couldn't control himself, and he didn't want to control himself. Gong Yimo felt his uneasiness and was a little scared. But no matter what, his feelings for her couldn't be faked. That was enough. Moreover, strictly speaking, she was in the wrong in the first place. After a long silence, Gong Yimo pouted and said with grievance. You scared me just now. She puffed up her cheeks and hit Gong Che. She was like a little punching bag. Her face was proud and timid, and her lips were pouted high. Gong Che also realized that he was being too unreasonable. He hurriedly coaxed her. His expression was unbelievably gentle, as if he wanted to melt her in his arms. Gong Yimo let him coax her for a long time before she proudly raised her chin and took out the water cloud grass from her space. Here, I got it. It's not that difficult. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. She purposely exaggerated her abilities, as if saying, hurry up and praise me. If you praise me, I'll forgive you. Gong Chei's expression was complicated. In his previous life, it was also Mo.Er who personally handed him the water cloud grass. Could this be fate? Gong Chei didn't say anything. Gong Yimo glanced at him and couldn't help but ask, is this enough to treat your illness? Not enough. But Gong Chei didn't intend to tell her. He sighed. Mo.Er. I have my own reasons for helping that person. It's not completely controlled by the water cloud grass. Gong Yimo didn't understand, why? He's just using you. Gong Chei touched her face, silly girl, don't you want to go out and have fun? If the country isn't stable, how can there be a small family? I just hope that when you go out, you can be more at ease. This is also my responsibility as a prince. Anyway, I will solve this matter properly. Mo.Er, promise me, don't take any more risks. Gong Yimo suddenly had an epiphany. You've asked me not to interfere a few times. Are you afraid that I'll be in danger, or are you afraid that I'll meet someone? She obviously didn't want to ask, but this feeling was getting stronger and stronger, and she couldn't ignore it. That person is Gong Dai. Mo.Er. Gong Chei suddenly raised his voice. He looked at Gong Yimo sternly, but since Mo.Er felt it, he didn't have to hide it anymore. Mo.Er, promise me that you'll never see him again, all right? Chapter 860. Gong Yimo was shocked when she heard him raise his voice all of a sudden. Who would have thought that it was really because of one person? Gong Chei saw that Gong Yimo wasn't speaking, so he emphasized again. Mo.Er, you can do whatever you want, but don't go and see him, okay? I'm begging you. But why? Gong Yimo asked curiously. She really couldn't understand. Could it be that she had some sort of interaction with that person? There's no why, Gong Chei gasped for air. He grabbed Gong Yimo's hand tightly and kept saying, don't see him, but his face was getting paler and paler. Large beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. In an instant, he looked like he had just been fished out of the water. Oh no, Gong Chei's illness is acting up. Gong Yimo was shocked. She had never seen Gong Chei's illness act up before. His illness was cyclical, and it rarely acted up suddenly. Today, it was only because his emotions were fluctuating too much that he became like this. Where's the medicine? Where's your medicine? Gong Chei pointed at his chest painfully. Gong Yimo hurriedly found a small bottle in his arms and poured out a pill for him to take. After taking the medicine, Gong Chei didn't recover immediately. He was still very uncomfortable. His face was pale and his lips were pale. Gong Yimo hurriedly wiped his sweat, but Gong Chei grabbed her hand. Mo.Er. Don't see him. Seeing that he was still thinking about this matter, Gong Yimo hurriedly said, okay, I won't see him. In the future, I'll run when he appears, okay? Don't talk anymore. Gong Chei closed his eyes in pain. He knew that he was being selfish, but he couldn't control his desires. Once, he desired her so much that he was willing to share her with Gong Dai. But that was his bottom line when he was pushed to the limit. He even felt that if Mo.Er took one more look at him and was willing to give him a chance, she would definitely discover who was the most suitable person for her. But now, she was already his. He would be crazy to give others a chance. Mo.Er, his voice was barely audible. I'm sorry. His heart was filled with guilt and he didn't even dare to look at her. Gong Emo sighed and wiped away all the beads of sweat on his forehead. Silly, we are husband and wife. No matter what the reason was, he would never harm her. Gong Che's expression became a little better. That's right, they were husband and wife. After resting for a while, Gong Che's breathing became much smoother. However, he lay on the bed with his black hair spread out and his face pale. He looked like a decadent glazed doll with a fragile beauty. Gong Yimo saw that he was not so uncomfortable, and also breathed a sigh of relief. Looking out of the window, it was already dawn. Gong Che suddenly rubbed his head against her thigh and said softly, "Thank you." Moer. Gong Yimo was a little confused. "Thank me for what?" Gong Che narrowed his eyes and looked at her exposed wound. A trace of pain flashed past his eyes. "I know what you did for me. I like it very much." Gong Yimo was stunned. Gong Che gradually became exhausted. He closed his eyes and frowned, but the corners of his mouth slowly curved up. "You did everything for me. I'm so happy and satisfied." "Thank you, Moer," Gong Yimo then snorted proudly. Her dangerous actions last night were not in vain. His words were enough. "As long as you know that I'm good to you, you have to be good to me in the future, okay?" However, Gong Che did not reply. Gong Yimo looked down and saw that he had fallen asleep quietly with his forehead resting on her thigh. Gong Yimo could not help but laugh. She sat and looked at Gong Che's sleeping face. She also felt sleepy. Fortunately, the bed was very big. She lay back and both of them slept well. After this incident, their relationship became even better. They were so sweet and affectionate that they could torture each other at any time. However, how could the other princes let Gong Che live so well? With Gong Dai's strong support and the emperor's nurturing, Gong Che displayed extraordinary talent and ability. His power was at its peak. If this continued, the throne would belong to the crown prince. Seeing that the emperor's body was getting weaker by the day, everyone was anxious. They thought of more sinister ways to harm him again and again. On this day, Gong Yimo was having her meal in the Eastern Palace. She saw the head eunuch of the Eastern Palace, Difu, rushing over. "Not good. Not good, madam." Because Gong Che had ordered everyone to call her Madam Gong Yimo. "What's wrong?" Gong Yimo looked up and saw the gloomy weather outside the window. She suddenly felt a little depressed. Difu knelt in front of Gong Yimo with an ugly expression. Someone tampered with His Majesty's medicine. That person framed His Highness the Crown Prince. He also said that His Majesty's illness was not good because of the Crown Prince's medicine. Also, poison was found on the Crown Prince. Gong Yimo stood up and said anxiously, "Then where is the Crown Prince now?" Difu said with a sad face, "His Highness is temporarily detained. His Highness was afraid that you would be worried, so he secretly sent a message to tell you not to be afraid." However, His Majesty sent the Imperial Dragon Guards to personally investigate. They will come to the Eastern Palace to search later. After he said this, Gong Yimo instantly understood. This was clearly a trap. There must be something in the Eastern Palace that violated the rules. And Gong Che could still send a message. Clearly, there was no need to worry for the time being. At this moment, there was a commotion outside. It must be the Imperial Dragon Guards. Gong Yimo rolled her eyes and said a few words to the panicking Difu. Difu did not know what she wanted to do, but he still obeyed her orders and blocked the Imperial Dragon Guards at the door. "Move aside. We are following His Majesty's orders to thoroughly investigate the Eastern Palace. Are you going to defy His Majesty's orders?" Difu's legs trembled, but he said firmly, "Young priest, His Majesty meant for the Imperial Dragon Guards to investigate this matter. He did not say for you to search the residence. Is the Eastern Palace a place you can barge into just because you want to? The Imperial Dragon Guards were a little hesitant. However, they had to investigate the Eastern Palace if the Emperor ordered them to enter the mountain. Diffuse quickly said, "How about this? The Crown Prince's bedroom is right in front. There are womenfolk inside. Just send 2 people in to search. If so many people go in and disturb the future Crown Princess, can you bear the responsibility?" This was not a bad idea. They had long heard that the Crown Prince had a mistress in his golden house. That person must be the future Crown Princess. Today's matter had not been settled yet. They did not want to make things too tense. This was a good idea. Thus, 2 people from the Imperial Dragon Guards walked out to search. Diffuse heaved a sigh of relief and only let the 2 people in. He stayed at the door to guard the remaining people. After the 2 people entered, they revealed strange smiles. Seeing that there was no one in the courtyard, they ran in a direction. Gong Yimo hid in the dark and clearly saw that they pulled something out of the dry well. When the cloth bag was opened, it was indeed a dragon robe. The 2 people were overjoyed and shouted, "Young priest! We found something!" The people outside heard their voices from afar. Ignoring Diffuse's attempts to stop them, they forced their way in. Gong Yimo also walked out at the right time. Looking at the 2 people, she smiled. Chapter 861. Seeing that the intruder was a woman, the 2 men relaxed. Gong Yimo pretended to be panicked and reached out to snatch the things in their hands. "What are you holding?" They wanted to avoid it at first, but after thinking about it, wouldn't they be caught red-handed if the things were in the hands of the Crown Prince's people? While they were distracted, Gong Yimo easily snatched the things in their hands. Only then did they relax. Gong Yimo seemed to know martial arts. Before they could make a move, the Imperial Dragon Guards rushed in. After seeing the head of the Imperial Dragon Guards, Li Shaoxi, their eyes lit up and they quickly went forward to report. "Shaoxi! We found the dragon robe." Li Shaoxi was shocked. "What? Where is the dragon robe?" What they didn't know was that the moment they turned around, the dragon robe that Gong Yimo snatched was gone. Although the bundle in her hands was still bulging, the contents were different. The dragon robe is in her hands. Everyone looked over. Gong Yimo looked frightened and stepped back. "No. I'm holding my own clothes, not the dragon robe." Seeing Gong Yimo like this, the 2 men sneered. "Nonsense, you're clearly holding the dragon robe. Just now, we saw you sneaking around and wanting to throw something into the well. Do you dare to open it and see?" Gong Yimo pursed her lips. "You were the ones who wanted to molest me. I'm the future Crown Prince's wife, how dare you?" Hearing her identity, the 2 men were even more delighted. Now, they could finally prove the Crown Prince's crime. Diffuse ran over and saw that Gong Yimo was surrounded. "How could he? What are you doing?" "Madam is the future Crown Prince's wife. Are you being disrespectful?" Shaoxi said awkwardly. "My 2 subordinates said that she was holding the dragon robe." "That's impossible." Diffuse led the Eastern Palace guards and stood in front of Gong Yimo. The Crown Prince had warned them repeatedly that no matter what happened, they couldn't let anything happen to Madam. Gong Yimo stopped Diffuse and said softly, "Why do you believe their words and doubt me?" Shaoxi knitted her eyebrows. Gong Yimo continued, "Or, if I didn't have the dragon robe in my hands, and they took advantage of me, and you questioned me, how would the Imperial Dragon Guards deal with it?" Her serious words made Li Shaoxi hesitate. At this time, the 2 men patted their chests and said, "Shaoxi, don't be fooled by her. We opened a corner of that bag with our own hands, and we're sure it's a dragon robe. Really? Li Shaoxi lowered his voice and asked. Absolutely. Gong Yimo sneered. What if I'm not? Li Shaoxi said with a cold face, if not, I'll leave these two to you. Gong Yimo snorted, my reputation as the future crown princess is really worthless. If you slander me, you, young priest, must promise me one thing. Otherwise, we will report this matter to His Majesty. Although Du Fu didn't know what Gong Yimo was going to do, he still tried his best to persuade her. The Eastern Palace is not a place for you to behave atrociously. If you slander Madam, the Eastern Palace will not let this matter go. Shaoxi hesitated for a while, but seeing that the two men beside her looked very confident, she nodded in the end. Please open the bag. Gong Yimo smiled and suddenly threw the bag into his hands. See for yourself. Shaoxi took it, and under everyone's expectant gazes, he opened the loose knot, revealing several black and red clothes. He was shocked and took one out to open it, only to find that it was a woman's dress. Gong Yimo said faintly, isn't the dragon robe yellow? I'm just taking care of a few unwanted clothes, and you say it's the dragon robe. You shouldn't find such an excuse to bully a weak woman like me. The two men were stunned. How could this be? The bag was in her hands for a while, but the dragon robe disappeared. Young priest. This shouldn't be. We clearly saw that it was the dragon robe. Gong Yimo showed an angry expression. Just now, you only cared about taking advantage of me. How could you see what was in my bag? Young priest, you should help me now, right? Hearing this, the two men couldn't stand it anymore. They approached Gong Yimo fiercely, looking like they wanted to search her body. Where did you hide the dragon robe? Hand it over. Gong Yimo took a few steps back, and Du Fu and his men pushed them away. He said loudly, what are you doing? His Highness the Crown Prince isn't here, so you can do whatever you want and accuse a deer as a horse. Enough. Shaoxi frowned and ordered his men to leave. Except for a well and a few trees, there was nothing here. It was unreasonable to say that she hid it. But the two men couldn't say anything. The dragon robe was clearly in her hands. Gong Yimo said faintly, all right, the truth is out. Young priest, now you know who's right and who's wrong, right? We had an agreement just now. In front of so many people, you want to go back on your words. Shaoxi was in a difficult position. Seeing that the two men still wanted to say something, he impatiently grabbed them and gestured for Gong Yimo to step aside to talk. Gong Yimo gladly accepted. Young priest, these two men were agreed to be handed over to the East Palace, Li Shaoxi said hesitantly, the Imperial Dragon Guards can't be handed over to others. But I will definitely investigate them carefully and give you an explanation. Gong Yimo raised her eyebrows slightly, so you want to go back on your words. Li Shaoxi thought for a moment. I can help you with one thing. I hope you can be merciful. After all, something happened to his men, and it was no small matter that the emperor was involved. Gong Yimo smiled, all right, I want you to take me to see the crown prince. Shaoxi was in a difficult position. But now that someone had something on her, she agreed after thinking for a while. In the prison, Gong Dai was still dressed in black. What was different was that he was carrying a sword today. His entire person was exuding a murderous aura, awe-inspiring and inviolable. Now that father is sick and you are in prison, everyone is ready to make a move. This prince just received news that the crown prince is gathering people to force you to make a move. This way, they can bring soldiers into the city in the name of saving the emperor. Even in the prison, Gong Che was still dressed in white. His gentle face had a hint of seriousness, I know. Just do what you need to do. They want to attack me and force me to make a move. It's not that simple. The current situation was that they wanted the crown prince to make a move and prove that he plotted to murder the emperor, so as to clean up the emperor's subordinates. Gong Dai and Gong Che decided to beat them at their own game. Now that everyone's attention and attacks were focused on Gong Che, Gong Dai could do a lot of things. As the saying goes, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Chapter 862. Gong Dai smiled. Don't let your guard down. I heard that the emperor sent the imperial dragon guards to the Eastern Palace. The Eastern Palace was not as tightly guarded as it is now. Perhaps someone buried something terrible there. If they really dig it up, you'll have to do something. If Gong Dai had said something else, Gong Che might have been worried. But the Eastern Palace. Was in the Eastern Palace. Gong Che did not think that with there, those people could do anything. If things did not work out, he had a backup plan. He would not be easily defeated. But if he was suddenly locked up, would be worried? Gong Che pondered for a moment, then suddenly said, "My people are getting more and more restricted. Nothing else matters, but the Eastern Palace, you must help me look after it. Don't let anyone be in danger." Gong Dai looked at him with a faint smile. Gong Che was in the most danger now. If he left, he would take a lot of people with him. It was very likely that one of his crazy brothers would send someone to kill him. At this time, he was still thinking about others. "Okay, I will send some people to the Eastern Palace. You, take care." Gong Che's expression was serious. "If this succeeds, you will reach the top as you wish. When the time comes, don't forget our agreement." Gong Dai turned and left. "I won't forget." He was really more and more interested in his brother now. He wanted to see how far Gong Che would go for a woman. Not long after he left, someone came to deliver food to Gong Che. Because Gong Che was only temporarily imprisoned, he was still the crown prince. The food was quite sumptuous. Gong Che stared vigilantly at the person who came. He was not as relaxed as he had said before. His rebirth was still too short. Although he had people in the palace and he had some power, compared to his previous life, it was a world of difference. He had to be careful to stay alive to see wait for me, it will be over soon. Your Highness, please have your meal. Gong Che ordered indifferently. The palace servants lowered their heads and served the dishes, but they did not leave immediately. "You may leave." Who would have thought that the man would not move? He even intentionally or unintentionally blocked the entrance and exit of the cell. With a tough attitude, he said, "Your Highness, please eat. Don't make things difficult for this servant." Gong Che smiled faintly. These people really couldn't wait any longer and wanted to make a move. When the servant saw that Gong Che wasn't moving, his expression changed. He wanted to use force, but in the next second, his body stiffened and he fell to the ground. Gong Che put away the small box in his hand, the chi box. This was something he used to protect himself. Speaking of which, on the boat in his previous life, he suddenly had a relapse and wanted to use the chi box to attack Immerse. However, Immerse beat him to it and gave him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. That was also the first time they had intimate contact and the beginning of his depravity. Gong Che sat down. Soon, the prison guards who had disappeared ran over and dragged the corpse away with ugly expressions. 4 people squeezed in. While they were cleaning up the corpse, one of the prison guards suddenly attacked. After killing 2 of the prison guards beside him, he slashed at Gong Che. Gong Che turned around and grabbed the chi box in his hand again. However, at this time, one of the prison guards beside him helped him and knocked the assassin unconscious with a slap. Gong Che raised his head in surprise and saw that the prison guard looked up and smiled at him. That dark little face was no longer what it used to be. Who else could it be but Immerse? Gong Che's face was filled with joy, but it quickly turned into anger. Why are you here? Quickly go to the East Palace. You can be protected there. Gong Yimo shook her head. No, I will be wherever you are. You are in too much danger now. I have to stay and protect you. No. Go back. Immerse, I am fine. Don't worry, okay? Fine. Gong Yimo did not believe him at all. Just now, the Imperial Dragon Guards found the dragon robe in the East Palace. This is not a small matter. How can you say that you are fine? Gong Che was stunned at first. Did they make things difficult for you? Seeing that Gong Che was still concerned about her first, Gong Yimo's mood improved a lot. Just a few Imperial Dragon Guards and they want to make things difficult for me. Not only did I hide the dragon robe, I even forced them to bring me in. I am not as weak as you think. Gong Che did not think that she was weak. He was just afraid that she would get hurt. Gong Yimo did not understand that even if she lost a strand of hair, he would be distressed for a long time. If it was not for the lack of time, he would definitely treat her to the extent that she would melt in his mouth. Gong Che sighed. What should I do with you? He stroked Gong Yimo's hair. But this matter will be over soon. Immerse, we will be able to leave very soon and never come back. Gong Yimo guessed that Gong Che and Gong Dai must have other plans. However, she did not care about that. Her only concern now was Gong Che's safety. Now that the Emperor's health was deteriorating, he was everyone's target. However, with her around, she would not allow anything to happen to him. We cannot stay here for long. Let's leave. Gong Yimo advised. Gong Che shook his head. Right now, I am bearing the crime of murdering Imperial Father. As long as this crime is not cleared, I cannot leave here. Otherwise, it will give others an excuse to make things difficult for me. Gong Yimo's eyes turned. In that case, you still have a place to go. Gong Che looked up at her. Gong Yimo pointed to the sky. Xiaoyang Hall. Gong Che's eyes lit up. Then, he frowned. Without Imperial Father's decree, I cannot go. Right now, the palace is under martial law. Trespassing is a capital offense. Gong Yimo patted her chest. There's still me. I have a way. Back then, Imperial Uncle promised me 3 things. For the third thing, he has not done it yet. Gong Che knew that the first thing she wanted to do was to marry him. The second thing she wanted to do was to break off the engagement. Thus, he asked her, the third thing. What is it? Gong Yimo blurted out. It's to have him find you a noble lady to be your wife. She almost bit her tongue after saying that. As expected, Gong Che's face darkened and he glared at her fiercely. You! He would be played to death by her sooner or later. Gong Yimo stuck out her tongue and wanted to slip away. However, she was pulled into Gong Che's embrace. Gong Che lowered his head and sighed. Thousands of words were condensed into one sentence. Be careful. You must remember that your safety is the most important thing. Everything else is insignificant. Gong Yimo's heart felt sweet. A trace of determination flashed across her eyes. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Moreover, I'll help you. With that, Gong Yimo left. She quickly walked towards Xiaoyang Hall. Using her outstanding qigong, she avoided everyone. In the end, she was stopped by Chang Shi. Who are you? After exchanging a blow with her, Chang Shi saw that it was her. He was rather surprised. Miss Shang. Gong Yimo nodded and went straight to the point. Eunuch, I have a matter to discuss with His Majesty. I hope that Eunuch can make things convenient for me. Chapter 863. Changshi thought about it and went in to report. Emperor Qing quickly received her. He liked Gong Yimo from the bottom of his heart, but unfortunately, after a year, his body deteriorated to this extent. It was really unexpected. When Gong Yimo saw Emperor Qing, she found that he had lost a lot of weight. It was a far cry from his appearance a year ago. He looked as if he was about to die, indescribably dispirited. Why are you here? His voice was hoarse, as if he would stop breathing in the next second. Gong Yimo was kept as a mistress by Gong Che. Gong Che didn't hide it from him. He even told him about Gong Yimo's true identity, so Gong Che had a special kind of pity for Gong Yimo. After all, she was Shulian's daughter. Gong Yimo initially thought that Emperor Qing was fine, but it seemed that he had deceived everyone. His appearance wasn't a simple poisoning, but that he wouldn't live long. Her heart trembled, but she still said, Your Majesty, I came to ask for a favor. Now that everyone wants to make a move against the Crown Prince, I want to ask Your Majesty to protect him and let him enter Zhaoyang Hall. Emperor Cheng's face was pale, and he faintly said, Many people said that it was Gong Che who poisoned me. Now, you have seen my true appearance. The imperial physician said that I don't have long to live. Do you think that at this time, I will be so kind to protect someone who is suspected of harming me? Gong Yimo knew that the emperor's words were human nature. If it was an ordinary illness, then it would be fine. But now, the person behind the scenes clearly wanted to kill the emperor. At this time, the emperor wouldn't have the slightest mercy. But she still said, Your Majesty, the crown prince wouldn't do such a thing. Emperor Qing shook his head, closed his eyes and sighed. You may know a person for a long time without understanding his heart. I don't know, who else can I trust? Gong Yimo thought for a while and reluctantly said, But you promised me 3 things. You didn't fulfill the last one. I hope that I can use the 3rd request in exchange for the crown prince to leave the prison. Emperor Gong sighed and actually laughed. You are also an infatuated girl. Fine, if you really want to be like this, Jin will lock him in Zhaoyang Hall. However, if the emperor had always been suspicious of Gong Che, even if he was in Zhaoyang Hall, it would still be very dangerous. Now that the emperor was about to die, the person behind the scenes only needed to kill Gong Che to achieve his goal. It would be best if neither of these 2 people died. Gong Yimo suddenly looked up. If I can help you find the antidote, will you believe the crown prince? Detoxify. That's easy for you to say. Gong Qing smiled, but lowered his head and coughed a few times. At this moment, Changshi said, Your Majesty, this poison is the poison of the 9 meridians flower. There's no cure for it, but there's one thing that might work. It's just that, ordinary people can't get it. Even your servant doesn't have the ability to do so. Gong Yimo was overjoyed. As long as there was an antidote, she would definitely be able to get it. Please tell me where the antidote is. I will definitely be able to get it. Changshi patted the emperor's breathing as he said, On the broken stairway to heaven, there's a 9-step divine stairway. It said that on the 6th step, there's a flower called Muluojin. That flower can cure hundreds of poisons. However, the broken stairway to heaven was a cliff. That 9-step divine stairway wasn't a place that people could climb. Not to mention Changshi, perhaps only the legendary person of the transcendent state could do it. Gong Yimo suddenly looked up. I can do it. I will definitely find the antidote. Emperor Gong tiredly looked up at her. He wasn't willing to wait for death. Although he knew what the antidote was, he was helpless against it. At this moment, Gong Yimo made such a request. Although he didn't believe that Gong Yimo could do it, her intentions were still very moving. If she wanted to go, then let her go. When she arrived and found the cliff's wind blades, she would give up. Good. Zhen, send someone to pick up the crown prince. You. Take care of yourself. Gong Yimo nodded. She was indeed a newborn calf who was not afraid of the tiger. However, she also knew that if Changshi couldn't do anything about it, it wouldn't be that simple. Therefore, she said shyly, "Your Majesty, don't tell the Crown Prince about this matter. I will definitely get the antidote. Even if you really suspect that the Crown Prince did this, before I come back, promise me to protect him, okay?" Emperor Gong suddenly smiled. "Good, you're a loyal girl. Your request." Shen agrees. "Thank you, Your Majesty." After Gong Yimo finished speaking, she turned around and left. Emperor Gong didn't look like he had much time left. She must act quickly. Moreover, she had a good impression of Gong Qing. She felt that he was a good uncle, and it would be a pity if he died like this. When she found the antidote, she would persuade Gong Qing to go to Mount Yunding with her. He should be able to live for a few more years if he ignored worldly affairs and practiced the martial arts of Mount Yunding. With countless beautiful thoughts, Gong Yimo confidently left. Emperor Gong kept his promise and brought Gong Che to Zhaoyang Palace Hall. When Chang Shi arrived at Zhaoyang Palace Hall, there were already a few more corpses in the death row prison. Gong Che felt very strange. Even if his brothers were anxious, it was impossible for them to be so impatient as to constantly send people to kill him. The only explanation was that there must be something that he and Gong Dai didn't know about. When Gong Che arrived at Zhaoyang Palace Hall, all the mysteries were answered. His imperial father's expression was decayed, and his face was filled with death aura. Emperor Gong could hide it from the world, but he couldn't hide it from the people who poisoned him. All the people behind the scenes knew that the emperor's life was short, so they wantonly attacked Gong Che. Gong Che was shocked. If things were not that simple, then what about Mo? Seeing Gong Che looking around, Emperor Gong couldn't help but laugh. Although he was poisoned to the heart, his spirit was still good. "You're looking for that girl Gong Yimo." This name was given by him in the past, and it sounded pretty good. Gong Che nodded. "Imperial father, Mo, doesn't know the severity of the matter, but she did everything for this son. You don't need to be angry with her. Please return her to this son." Emperor Gong chuckled. "Now, Gong Dai should be gathering troops, right? The people who poisoned him wanted to get rid of the emperor's side, and you also wanted to beat them at their own game. But Zhen's appearance made you miscalculate." Emperor Gong couldn't be blamed for hiding this matter. He had many sons. Once everyone knew that he didn't have long to live, it wouldn't be so peaceful now. The entire capital would be in chaos. But Gong Che couldn't listen so much. He asked repeatedly, "Imperial father, where is Mo? Emperor Gong glared at him. Mo, if Shen really died, you will be the one who will be the emperor. How can you cough? Be so sentimental." Gong Che suddenly took a few steps forward, and Chang Shi stood between the father and son. "Your Highness, please don't act blindly without thinking." Gong Che's whole body tensed up. Separated by Chang Shi, he asked for the last time, word by word, "Where is Mo? His heart was uneasy. He always felt that something more unexpected was about to happen. Chapter 864. Chang Shi said with some displeasure, "Your Highness, His Majesty is now poisoned. You shouldn't talk to His Majesty like this." Gong Che then realized that he had lost his composure. Seeing Gong Cheng's terrifying face, his heart also felt a bit of pain. In his previous life, Gong Cheng died because of him. In this life, although the father and son didn't have much interaction, the kinship of blood was still thicker than water. Imperial Father. What kind of poison are you poisoned with? Gong Cheng narrowed his eyes. Shin said, I won't live long. This country will soon be your country. Imperial Father. Changshi sighed, His Majesty has been poisoned by the 9 meridians flower. There's no cure. The imperial physician also means that he won't live long. It had actually reached this point. One must know that the imperial physician generally wouldn't say such words. Once he said it, there was really no way to save the situation. Gong Cheng glanced at him, so. As the crown prince. It's time for you to fulfill your duty. Gong Cheng's expression was solemn. He felt that there was a hidden meaning in Gong Cheng's words. What did he mean by he should fulfill his duty? What about Mo? Imperial Father wouldn't do anything to Mo, because of him, right? After all, Mo, was born in the wilderness. It's difficult for her to be the mother of a country. He said anxiously, no matter what, Imperial Father. Mo, is this son's wife? Tell me where she is first. Gong Cheng coughed a few times and sneered, wife? Are you married? Back then, she personally came to break off the engagement. She didn't marry anyone but you. Gong Che said almost without hesitation, this son will marry anyone but her. Gong Cheng glared and said angrily, you will marry anyone but her. That's only if she can come back. Gong Che's heart became more and more uneasy. He asked coldly, what did you do? What did you do to her? Chang Shi saw that Gong Che was getting more and more agitated. He couldn't help but force him back and said loudly. Your Highness, calm down. Miss Shang only went to find an antidote for His Majesty. Gong Che immediately caught the problem. Antidote. His thick eyebrows furrowed. If there is an antidote, why didn't you tell me? Instead, he sent a woman to look for him. What the hell is going on? Changshi sighed. He glanced at Emperor Gong Cheng's pale face and whispered, although there is no cure for His Majesty's poison, legend has it that there is a strange object on the sky ladder that can cure hundreds of poisons. Maybe we can give it a try. Broken stairway to heaven. Gong Che's lips trembled. He hadn't forgotten that was the place where he died. That was where he once jumped off the cliff with Mo, in his arms. But how could there be any divine objects there? It was just a cliff. Facing Gong Che's question, Changshi said, on the 6th step of the 9 steps divine stairs, it is said that there is a flower called Mu Luo Jin that can cure hundreds of poisons. So, you want Mo, to break the sky ladder, you want to force her to jump off the cliff? Emperor Gong Cheng snorted, broken stairway to heaven is windy, Changshi. Changshi can only look and turn back. What's more, a girl. He took a deep breath. Shin sees that although the girl is full of enthusiasm, when she sees the sky ladder, she will naturally come back. How can it be forcing her to jump off the cliff? Emperor Gong Cheng didn't believe that Gong Yimo would really jump off the cliff. But he wanted to see how far Gong Yimo could go for Gong Che. That deep affection, whether it could withstand the test. His light words made Gong Che tremble all over. He knew Mo, too well. Normally, when people saw that things were not going well, they would give up after trying their best. But Mo, she did not know what giving up meant. Thinking of this, Gong Che went crazy. He hurriedly ran out, not knowing where to go, and almost hit a pillar. Your Royal Highness, where are you going? Changshi frowned, because he had never seen Gong Che lose his self-control like this. Get out of the way, I want to find her. Ridiculous. Emperor Gong Qing couldn't bear to see other people being emotional, especially Gong Che. He was the crown prince, the one who would inherit the throne in the future. How could he be so impetuous? He gasped and said, "It's not like she won't come back." What do you look like?" Gong Che didn't listen at all. "She's not a person who will retreat in the face of difficulties. Get out of the way. I'm going to find her." Emperor Gong Qing was really angry this time. His face sank. "Gong Yimo tried every possible way to get you to take refuge in Zhaoyang Hall. Is this how you do things? You're not even as good as a little girl. How can you take on such a big responsibility?" Chang Shi's obstruction caused Gong Che's heart to burn with anxiety. He abruptly turned around and spoke quickly. "It's a matter of life and death. Imperial Father, Emor is someone who will jump down the stairway to heaven, if she's in any danger." If she's in any danger. Gong Che couldn't bear to continue. Emperor Gong Cheng's face turned even colder. "So what if she's in danger? She's just a girl, and she was poisoned to death because of me. It's also a worthy death. No. I absolutely can't let her be in any danger." Gong Che suddenly knelt down on both knees. "Imperial Father, please let me go. If you need Mu Luo Jin, this son will go get it for you. This matter has nothing to do with Amoer. This son won't allow her to have any mishap." "Then you can have any mishap?" Emperor Gong Qing suddenly waved his hand, letting Changshi retreat, and said angrily, "You can go. Take a step out of Zhaoyang Hall. Whether you're dead or alive, I won't care about you anymore." Who knew that his words would make Gong Che ecstatic? He quickly got up and walked towards the door in large strides. Emperor Gong Qing only felt a trace of fishy sweetness overflowing from his throat. He angrily shouted, "If you go out of this door, you will no longer be the crown prince." Gong Che's figure paused, and in the next second, he went out of Zhaoyang Hall's door. "Bastard!" Emperor Gong Qing was furious and broke the teacup on the low table beside the bed. The fragments fell to the ground. After Gong Che came out, he finally stopped hiding. He mobilized all the forces in his hands to cover him and avoid all the assassination attempts. He smoothly left the palace, and then hurriedly ran towards the stairway to heaven. With hundreds of people opening the way, it should be unimpeded, but he still felt that it was too slow. His heart was thumping, as if something was about to leave him. When Gong Yimo reached the stairway to heaven, it was really a bit tiring. If she was given enough time, she thought that she could make a simple climbing frame or other props. However, when she came, she carefully inquired that there were flowers in the mountain stream. An old man who picked herbs once went down to the second step of the 9 steps of the stairway to heaven. He smelled a bitter and sweet smell below, which was the smell of the legendary Muluo Jin. However, when it came to October, the smell disappeared, so she guessed that the flowering period was in October. Now that it was the end of September, Muluo Jin needed flowers to be effective, so there was no time to make props for her. She had to use the simple and crude method of picking herbs, and directly climb down the rope. Fortunately, she had some climbing tools in her space, such as climbing ropes, iron locks, rock plugs, and so on. As long as she was careful, it shouldn't be too dangerous, but this was just a self-deceiving idea. Climbing a cliff, especially a vertical and neat stone wall like the stairway to heaven, the slightest mistake would cause her to be smashed to pieces. That was fine, but judging from the wind blowing from the bottom of the cliff, the wind below must be even stronger. Under such circumstances, it was easy for her to be blown by the wind, which greatly increased the degree of danger. Chapter 865. But she could do it. She had modern rock climbing tools, so she had an advantage over the ancient people. Once she successfully took back the Mu Luo Jin, Gong Che would be safe. She decided to do it. Gong Yimo fastened the rope to a huge rock and pulled it. It felt quite secure. She tied the safety rope on her body and stood at the edge of the cliff with her back facing the cliff. The strong wind blew, causing her back to feel cold. Although she was not afraid of heights, when she thought of the abyss behind her, she still felt a little scared. At this moment, she suddenly saw someone running over from afar. Gong Yimo looked carefully and found that it was Gong Che. Scary, why did he come? Thinking of Gong Che's nervous personality, he would definitely not agree to her taking the risk. But now that the arrow was on the bow, she had no choice but to release it. It was better for her not to say goodbye. Gong Che saw Gong Yimo standing at the edge of the cliff. At that moment, he only felt that his heart was about to stop. "Mor." His voice was too mournful and hoarse, causing Gong Yimo to stop jumping down. Seeing him running towards her, she thought timidly, should she first admit her mistake? Gong Che ran to her side in a few steps. Seeing that she was standing at the edge, he did not dare to come closer for a moment. He looked at her with a frightened expression and finally said in a very soft voice, "Come here." Gong Yimo shook her head. Time waits for no one. She did not want the emperor to die, nor did she want anything to happen to Gong Che. "It's okay. I'm confident that I can get the Mu Luo gene. Don't worry." As she said that, she moved back a little. That little distance made Gong Che's heart almost jump to his throat. "You don't have to do this." He came closer little by little and said in the least provocative voice. "Come here. I'm father's child. The Mu Luo gene should be taken by me. Come back." Gong Yimo felt that his expression was a little strange. She was going to pick herbs, not to jump off a cliff. Why was Gong Che looking at her as if she was going to commit suicide? "The wind is too strong, you can't do it." She frowned. "Don't worry, I won't disappoint you. I will definitely get this woodnet brocade back." Mor. Gong Che closed her eyes in pain. She had no idea what the heaven stairway was. This was the place where they had fallen together, and this place made him extremely terrified. She didn't know anything at all. "Don't worry." Gong Yimo was a little anxious. She should go down first. If there was anything, wait until she came up. Seeing that she didn't listen to him, Gong Che suddenly opened his eyes. "Gong Yimo." This was the first time he had called her by her full name. Gong Yimo was stunned and looked at him blankly. She saw that Gong Che's body was stiff as he stood straight and looked at her. There was anger on his face, but more than that, there was pain. After running continuously, his crown had already fallen on the road. At this moment, his long hair was flying in the wind. With that white robe, there was an indescribable sense of tragedy. Gong Yimo's expression turned serious as she gritted her teeth. "Gong Che, you have to know that I'm not a bird in a cage." Her voice was very calm and her expression was very calm. "You like me, you care about me. I can feel it. But you've protected me too well. I have hands and feet, I have intelligence and ability. I can fight side by side with you and help you. Not standing behind you for everything. That's not husband and wife." Gong Che's eyes gradually turned red. Gong Yimo's words had exposed his selfishness. All along, he had been too afraid of losing her. He didn't dare to let Gong Yimo see Gong die. He didn't dare to let Gong Yimo show off her talent. He didn't even dare to let her stand at the edge of the stairway. Because in this place, she had once died for someone, but that person wasn't him. Gong Che would never forget that back then, she jumped off the cliff because she didn't want to kill Gong Dai, but she couldn't control herself. This place made him afraid. It should be said that he was afraid at all times. This happiness was as if he had stolen it. It didn't belong to him. But he couldn't give up. Gong Yimo continued speaking, her tone powerful. I don't know why you're so afraid. It's as if I'll leave you in the end. Then let me tell you today. If I can jump off this cliff for you, I'll climb back up for you. What you need to do is to believe in me. Her heels were completely in the air, and a look of determination appeared on her face. As long as you believe in me once, you'll always believe in me. At that time, we'll be husband and wife. Gong Che's body trembled slightly. He didn't know how to fill up his feelings at this moment. On one hand, he was afraid of losing her. On the other hand, he believed in her. Could he do it? Seeing her disappear before his eyes and believing that she would come back. Gong Che walked step by step in front of Gong Yimo. His eyes were red, his face was pale, and his hair was messy. His gaze was so miserable, as if he was the one who was walking on the edge of the cliff. If he wasn't careful, he would be smashed to pieces. His fair and slender fingers touched Gong Yimo's face. He lowered his head and looked at Gong Yimo with an indescribable sorrow. Will you really come back for me? He was so afraid. What would happen if she disappeared just like that? Gong Yimo looked up. The two of them were very close. At such a close distance, she could clearly see his red eyes and hear his trembling voice. Men don't cry easily, but for her, he seemed to be able to disregard everything. Such deep affection moved one's heart. Believe in me. For you, I'll definitely come back. How long? How long will you be away from me? Gong Yimo pondered. This round trip would take at least a day, right? You'll wait for me here for a day. Gong Che said firmly. I'll wait for you here. But what if someone comes after you? This time, it was Gong Yimo's turn to be worried. It was already so dangerous in the palace, what more outside? Gong Che put down his hand and said tightly. I believe that you'll come back. You also have to believe that I'll be safe. Husband and wife, one heart, right? Gong Yimo couldn't help but smile. Yes. Husband and wife. As she said that, she tiptoed and kissed Gong Che's lips. Gong Che opened his eyes wide in a daze, as if he couldn't believe this kiss. Their long hair tangled together. In the end, it was Gong Yimo's big smile. Wait for me. After saying that, she leaped backwards. Her figure quickly disappeared into the clouds. The rope fluttered and then suddenly became taut. Gong Che couldn't help but take another step forward and look down. At this time, his toes were slightly in the air. The wind from the bottom of the cliff made his hair flutter. He looked like a crazy devil. His sleeves were fluttering. He seemed like he was going to leave with the wind, but also seemed like he was going to fall into the abyss. I believe in you. His voice was so soft that it couldn't be heard. The redness in his eyes faded and his expression became firm. He wouldn't forget her words. She said that she fell off the cliff for him and would also climb back up for him. Gong Yimo, this is your promise to me. You have to do it. Chapter 866. After Gong Yimo jumped down, she was really worried about herself. The wind below was much stronger than above. She was swayed left and right by the mountain wind, and her breathing was a little irregular. She took a while to get used to it before she stuffed the rock plug into the gap between the mountain rocks. Then, she put the rope through it and fixed it with the rock plug as she climbed down bit by bit. However, the stone wall across the stairway was too vertical and smooth. Sometimes, the rock plug felt that it was not stable after being stuffed in several places. However, there was no other way now. This kind of traditional climbing method was very dangerous. Finally, she reached the first step. The 9-step stairway was very vivid. It was very tall and was said to be the place where gods ascended to heaven. Its long and narrow shape was also like a flight of stairs. Every step had a different surprise. The first step was not very big. It was about 200 square meters. It was long and rectangular. There were no plants on the mountain walls, but there were plants here. Moreover, because of the climate, the plants were very strange and different from the outside. There were abandoned straw baskets and nests of bird eggs on the ground. Occasionally, people would come down here to collect herbs, so it was normal to have human tools. Gong Yimo rested for a while and then went down to the second step. During the process, she felt cold. It was the end of September, but there was a kind of winter chill. Fortunately, she had internal strength to protect her body, so there was no problem for the time being. However, the wind in the mountain stream was getting stronger, making her dizzy. The second step was a concave rectangular stone pit about 400 square meters in size. At this time, she could not help but praise nature's uncanny workmanship. Because in such a large and slender pit, there was a self-contained cycle. There was water, trees, birds, and naturally, there were also herbs. Gong Yimo did not stay for long. She did not forget that her goal was the 6th step. However, the old man who collected herbs said that the second step was the limit. If she went down, she would reach the palace of the King of Hell. After going down, no one had come up. Gong Yimo was not convinced and really wanted to go down and take a look. Halfway up, Gong Yimo felt that other than the wind being stronger, there was nothing different. That was not right. The sky seemed to have darkened. The place was filled with water vapor, and the sunlight was gradually unable to shine in. The lower she went, the darker it was. Gong Yimo had a bad feeling, and her movements gradually slowed down. She put on the flashlight cap and felt much better. The stone walls here were very slippery. When she went down the rock plugs, she couldn't find a suitable spot, so she had to put 2 or 3 rock plugs to reinforce it. Fortunately, she had a lot of outdoor equipment in her space. If she found something she liked, she would buy a few sets of climbing tools. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough rope to go down here. Gong Yimo finally reached the 3rd step. This place was also a rectangular platform that extended into the mountain wall. It was hard to see how big it was, but the plants were quite lush. The 9 steps divine staircase, it really was 1 step at a time. No wonder there was such a legend. There were a lot of plants in front of her, but she didn't dare to go too deep to avoid unnecessary trouble. At this time, she finally smelled a faint sweet and bitter fragrance from the bottom of the cliff. It seemed that the flowering period of the Muluo gene had not passed yet. Gong Yimo was relieved and decided to find a place to sit down. She saw that there was a piece of dead wood on the ground that was not in the grass, so she sat on it. But the moment she sat down, she realized that something was wrong. The wood was actually a little elastic. It could fucking move. Gong Yimo turned around. Behind her was a snake with a bloody mouth. And she was sitting on the snake. After Gong Yimo went down, Gong Che ordered people to seal off the place. Then, he didn't plan to leave and sat down on a big rock. But just because he didn't look for trouble, it didn't mean that trouble wouldn't find him. There was a commotion. Someone brought a group of private soldiers and broke in. The leader was the 6th prince. Gong Che glanced at him. His eyes were indescribably cold. In his previous life, it wasn't that he didn't have brothers who died in his hands. It was just that he cared about his reputation and didn't do things as ruthlessly as Gong Dai. But he had already dealt with people once. Dealing with them again would only be easy. The 6th prince, Gong Qi, was the son of Lu Xianfei. But Lu Xianfei was killed by Gong Dai the year he left the cold palace. The reason Gong Chi was still alive was because Gong Dai didn't want to kill him so quickly. These few years, he had been in a mess. Now, it seems that he had become someone else's hired thug. Gong Chi wasn't good looking. At most, his facial features were regular. At this time, he was looking at Gong Che with a vicious expression. Now that the emperor didn't have long to live, as long as they killed Gong Che, this country would be theirs. At that time, even if Gong Dai's ability was heaven-defying, he wouldn't be able to reverse the situation. Royal brother, you didn't stay in Zhaoyang Palace and came here. Is it to make it easier for me to silence you? It's to make it easier to silence you, Gong Che said. He sat on the stone floor and didn't get up. His long hair quietly spread over his shoulders. His appearance was handsome and gentle, but at this time, there was a demonic color to it. Gong Chi, if you dare to make a move today, tomorrow morning, the evidence of you stealing from the national treasury and illegally raising taxes will be sent to Royal Father. Royal Father is about to die, but he's not dead yet. There's still time to deal with a trash like you. Gong Che's words made Gong Chi's heart tremble. He had done it so covertly and didn't leave any evidence. This Gong Che must be tricking him. Thinking of this, Gong Chi suppressed his panic and said loudly, "You're the trash. For the past 20 years, your position as the crown prince has been unstable. In the past few months, you've only improved a little. Someone like you dares to say that you have something to use against me." Gong Che only smiled. "Do you still remember Lu Xian and Zhang Jie? Sometimes, if you don't silence them, they will die. They are now in my hands. If you don't believe me, you can try." Only then did Gong Chi feel afraid. Weren't those two killed by him? Could it be that his subordinates were lying to him? "Prince, are we still going to make a move?" One of Gong Chi's subordinates asked softly. Gong Chi thought that since the person was here, he might as well find someone to verify it first. It wouldn't be too late to make a decision later. Thus, he said in a deep voice, "Let's wait and see. This prince wants to see what he's doing here." But master, a trace of embarrassment flashed across Gong Chi's face. "I'll take care of him. You, go and check if Lu Xian and Zhang Jie are still alive." "Yes." That person retreated unwillingly. At this time, the crown prince only had 100 people. If they attacked together, they would definitely be able to take down the crown prince. There was no need to waste time here. Seeing that he had calmed down, Gong Che only closed his eyes. The two sides faced each other, but no one spoke. The air around the cliff condensed, as if waiting for a breakthrough. It was also like the calm before the storm. Chapter 867. The huge python moved and wrapped itself around Gong Emo. Gong Emo had never seen such a large snake in her life. She didn't pay attention and was wrapped around by the python. The snake's body was so tight that she almost couldn't breathe. It wasn't over yet. The huge snake tied Gong Emo up and opened its mouth to bite her head. Gong Emo was stunned. At the last moment, she pulled out a hand to block it. The huge snake bit down, but it couldn't close its mouth because a thick Oxford dictionary suddenly appeared in her hand. It was stuck in its mouth, no matter how wide it opened its mouth. It couldn't swallow it down. The huge snake shook its head in discomfort, as if it wanted to swallow or spit out the big fellow stuck in its throat. However, its body tightened even more, as if it couldn't wait to turn its prey into minced meat. Gong Emo relied on her inner strength to protect her body and prevent her spine from breaking. However, it was still uncomfortable. She pulled out her hand and took advantage of the moment when the huge snake was shaking its head to quickly take out a sharp dagger. With the help of her inner strength, she ruthlessly stabbed the snake's body. It was said that to beat a snake, one had to hit it 7 inches. She didn't know if she stabbed it or not, but the snake didn't die. However, it let out a hiss and suddenly let go of her. It quickly drilled into the depths of the dark cave. Gong Yimo gasped for breath and didn't chase after it. This fellow had probably lived for several hundred years. Besides, she still had important matters to attend to and couldn't delay. It was a pity that her Oxford dictionary had followed her and she hadn't opened it even once. Gong Yimo didn't dare to stay for long and continued down. She wanted to make a round trip in one day so that Gong Che wouldn't be worried. Fastening the buckle again, Gong Yimo continued to climb down. The mountain stream was getting colder and colder, and the light was getting weaker and weaker. The air was filled with water vapor and chilly wind blew. It was as if there was some monster hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to make its move. Gong Yimo shook her head and shook off those unrealistic fantasies. How could there be any demons or ghosts? She was just scaring herself. The people Gong Chi sent out returned very quickly. After reporting, Gong Chi's expression became much uglier. It seemed that those two people had really fallen into Gong Chi's hands. If he acted rashly, the one who would be dealt with tomorrow would be him. Gong Che had the intention to retreat, but Gong Che acted as if he did not see this scene. He was absent-minded as he listened to the reports of his subordinates. He only felt that time was passing very slowly, and every moment was torture. Gong Chi thought about it and felt that it was not appropriate to take the risk now. After all, according to the plan, the emperor still had some time before he died, so it was better for him not to offend the emperor. Just as he was about to retreat with his men, someone suddenly came to report, "Your Highness. Master and Gong Dai are fighting outside the city. Master said that there is a change in the plan. Today, Prince must kill the Crown Prince and meet up in the capital." Upon hearing that Gong Dai had actually brought troops here, Gong Chi was subconsciously afraid. These past few years, he had been tormented by Gong Dai, and was afraid that he was like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. Moreover, Gong Dai's sudden appearance had disrupted his plans, causing him to feel even more uneasy. "Your Highness. Now is not the time to be afraid." The person glanced at Gong Che, who was sitting quietly on the boulder, and a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. "If we can directly attack the yellow dragon today, no matter what kind of weakness others have on you, Master will be able to protect you." His words finally moved Gong Chi's heart. His expression was ruthless as he stared at Gong Che, his eyes filled with killing intent. Gong Che's men were on alert, protecting Gong Che behind them. Following Gong Chi's order, the two sides instantly engaged in battle. Gong Che had brought more than 100 people, while Gong Che had 200 to 300 people. Gong Che was at a disadvantage. Moreover, this was only the beginning. If he planned to force the abdication today, then Gong Che would definitely die here today. Even if Gong Chi was defeated, there would still be an endless stream of people coming to kill him. They would not rest until they were dead. Gong Che also received the news that Gong Dai had already made his move. As long as he did not die, he would be able to attract an endless stream of enemies. In this battle to force the abdication, both sides did not have many people. The more people he killed, the greater their chances of victory. As for how dangerous it was for him to be in this open space, he had never considered this problem. The two of them fought like a raging fire. Very quickly, the team that Gong Dai had sent to protect the Eastern Palace also arrived. After such a long time, Gong Che had not done nothing. He would not let himself die like this. He still wanted to be together with his beloved. With their addition, the battle became one-sided. Gong Chi gradually lost, and fear began to grow in his heart. His reinforcements were still on the way, so he had to think of a way to stall for time. At this time, his sharp eyes suddenly saw a strange black rope tied to a large rock. Gong Che had been sitting there all this time. Could it be because of that rope? His evil guts grew as he hurriedly gathered the remaining men and charged in Gong Che's direction. Everyone thought that they were going to kill the Crown Prince, but the Crown Prince did not dodge. Everyone could only risk their lives to protect him, but they did not expect that Gong Che was going for the rope. Gong Che was shocked. He wanted to make a move, but it was already too late. He did not expect Gong Che to notice the rope and discover his purpose of guarding here. Humph. Gong Che. You also have a day like this. You want to guard this rope, right? I wonder who is tied to it. Gong Che's face was gloomy. Let go. I'll let you go. Otherwise, I'll tear you to pieces. When Gong Che heard that the other party was letting him go, he was overjoyed, but he thought of their grand plan. Even if he left like this, he would not be able to bear the consequences. The only thing he could do now was to stall for time and wait for reinforcements. You're the one who let go. Retreat, all of you retreat, or I'll cut off this rope. Gong Che's words made Gong Che's face turn pale. He knew that if Immerse wanted to come up, she would still need to rely on this rope. He could not let it break. Seeing Gong Che's change in expression, Gong Che knew that it was useful and laughed. Retreat, retreat. Otherwise, I'll cut it off. Gong Che panicked and suddenly said, don't touch it. He pursed his lips and stared at the other party. What you want is my life. I'll go over, don't touch it. At this time, there were only a few people left on Gong Che's side. Gong Che did not expect such a turn of events and was overjoyed. All right. Come here. Your Highness, you can't. Someone tried to dissuade him, but Gong Che did not listen at all, and walked step by step towards Gong Che, who was standing at the edge of the cliff. Seeing that the two sides were getting closer and closer, Gong Che slightly loosened the rope in his hand. Gong Che saw this, and when he was only a few meters away, he suddenly made his move. In the past year or so at Mount Yunding, although Gong Che did not learn any decent martial arts, in order to let him protect himself, Gong Yimo still taught him a few moves to protect himself. Unexpectedly, he quickly kicked the two guards away. His hands were in the shape of claws, carrying a bone-piercing killing intent. He stabbed towards Gong Che. Gong Che was shocked. In his desperation, he pushed a guard beside him out. That person blocked the death blow for Gong Che, allowing Gong Che to narrowly escape with his life. Chapter 868. Gong Che did not expect Gong Che to know martial arts, and even more did not expect that he would dare to fight back at this time. Thus, he ruthlessly chopped at the rope. Aren't you nervous about this rope? If you dare to kill me, I will cut this rope. This series of actions only took a few seconds. After Gong Che shook off the guard, he saw this scene and his pupils shrank. No! Gong Che's vision blurred, and in the next second, he discovered that someone had actually caught the edge of his blade. Gong Che was stunned. Without waiting for him to react, Gong Che struck out with his palm, and Gong Che fell off the cliff like a kite with a broken string. The rest of the people were taken care of by Gong Che's men in a few moves. Only then did Gong Che throw away the blade, his palm covered in blood. Your Highness. Someone hurriedly ran over to bandage him and advised in a low voice, Your Highness, this place is vast, difficult to attack and difficult to defend. Today, there will definitely be a bitter battle. Why don't we retreat to a safe place? No need. Gong Che's face was pale. He took the gauze from his hand and hastily bandaged it himself. The wind from the mountain stream blew his long hair, and his gentle eyes were exceptionally calm at this time. I want to wait here for her to come back. Right here, not a single step away. Gong Yimo finally reached the 4th floor. Even with a flashlight, the visibility was less than 3 meters. Moreover, there were weeds and trees everywhere, making it impossible for people to step on them. The only thing that was worth gratifying was that the fragrance of the wood silk brocade was even stronger. Gong Yimo could not help but think that although it was said that there was only wood silk brocade on the 6th floor, there might be some on the 4th floor as well. Thus, she decided to look for it nearby. Legend has it that the flower was red, and its appearance was in the shape of layers of discs. The flower was very large, so logically speaking, it should be very easy to find. Gong Yimo was afraid that there would be something like a python here, so she calmed her chi and concentrated, being especially careful. From time to time, she could hear the cries of unknown insects. There was no wind here, but it was exceptionally cold. Gong Yimo felt that she was a little numb from the cold. Although the protruding part of the 4th layer also looked like a flight of stairs, it extended a lot deeper into the cliff. It was pitch black inside, and no one knew where it led to. Gong Yimo couldn't help but wonder if there was a path that led directly to the 6th layer. Otherwise, when she was climbing outside, even if she had enough tools, the slightest mistake would result in her being smashed to pieces. Gong Yimo was overjoyed. She walked towards the depths of the mountain step by step. She used a sword to open a path. She realized that the vegetation was gradually decreasing, and there were more and more exposed rocks. Furthermore, it was heading downwards. Gong Yimo was overjoyed. It seemed that this path could really lead downwards. His only regret was that he didn't find any wood brocade along the way. It seemed that he really had to go down to the 6th level. At this moment, she suddenly heard some movement. When she came back to her senses, she immediately ran out. Soon, the black bats moved out. If they were ordinary bats, it would have been fine. However, Gong Yimo saw with her own eyes that the birds that were flying earlier had turned into white bones in an instant. These bats had mutated. They actually ate meat directly. That sharp cry made Gong Yimo dizzy. There shouldn't have been any sound, but she heard it. Moreover, the sound waves made her want to vomit. She quietly hid behind a rock and adjusted her breathing. She was secretly glad that she had trusted her intuition. If she hadn't run just now, she would definitely have been injured. Just as she was rejoicing, she felt a sharp pain on her fingertips. It turned out to be a dark green centipede. It was more than 10 centimeters long. Only the spot on its head was bright red. Damn it, this thing's poison was definitely not small. Gong Yimo deftly killed the centipede. Then, she cut open the area where she was bitten. She released the poisonous blood and swallowed an antidote pill. When she came down, she had sprinkled some insect repellent powder on her body. She didn't know why the animals here were so powerful. The powder didn't have much effect. It seemed that she still had to be more careful. This was the 9 steps divine staircase. It was also called the 9 layers of hell by the local herb gatherers. It was obvious that it wasn't a good place to enter. Groups and groups of people had died beside the altar. This was the sacred place of Dai Yu State. It was a place that shouldn't be stained with dust. However, Gong Che had dyed this place red with blood, all because he was waiting for one person. His white robe was dyed with blood, like blooming red plum blossoms. The number of people Gong Che had killed today was much more than the number of people he had killed in his 2 lives combined. The feeling of his blade cutting open the flesh of his enemies made him feel very uncomfortable. However, he couldn't stop, because he had to guard this place and wait for Moer to return. Your Highness, let's go. The next group of enemies will be here soon. If you don't leave, you will be in danger. Gong Che's hand was trembling. He loosened his grip and the sword fell to the ground. The corpses on the ground were very eye-catching. The gauze on his palm was once again soaked with blood. Drops of blood stained his pale face. That gentle jade-like face was now frozen. There was an indescribable chill. "I'm not leaving." His voice was a little hoarse. "This place is a little far from the palace. If they come here, they can relieve some of the pressure on the palace. Most importantly," he looked at the cliff. "I have to wait for her." At this time, a large group of soldiers and horses had killed their way up the mountain. Gong Che's side only had a few hundred people left. The situation became tense again. "Your Highness, what should we do now?" Hearing this, Gong Che suddenly looked in another direction. A faint smell of medicine wafted over. There was a movement in the forest and a few birds flew out. Following a long whistle, Qiu Xingfeng, whose robe was whiter than snow, rushed over with a group of people in green. He shouted as he ran. "Who dares to hurt my grand disciple?" Gong Che's lips curled into a smile. Previously on Yunding Mountain, he had spent a year to form an alliance with Qiu Zhongchan. Now, it was time for them to help. With the help of the people on Yunding Mountain, the two sides were evenly matched. Who would emerge victorious would depend on who was favored by the heavens. The sky gradually darkened. Gong Che reached out to push away the wet hair in front of his eyes. His fingertips were stained with blood on his white forehead. There was a kind of extreme fragility and an extreme demonic beauty. He completely threw away the restraints of the crown prince and followed his heart. A subtle pleasure gradually rose in his chest. He thought he liked the martial world. At this time, Gong Yimo's situation was not good. She was a little dizzy and her body was gradually losing strength. After seeing those scary bats, Gong Yimo gave up on walking inside the mountain. Compared to those strange creatures, she felt that it was safer to climb the mountain. But in the process of climbing, she gradually found that something was wrong. Her hands were sweating. Fortunately, she was wearing a pair of climbing gloves. Otherwise, she would have slipped down. This was not the most serious thing. The most serious thing was that she was seeing double. The sky was completely dark. The torchlight hat on her head became the only source of light. Chapter 869. Gong Yimo reached for the rock, but she failed several times. When she took a closer look, she found that she had stuffed it in the wrong place. Gong Yimo took a deep breath. Her muddled mind finally realized that something was wrong. She was poisoned or something else. She couldn't continue climbing now. She had to find a place to rest. Gong Yimo looked around. There was no wind here, but her breath turned into frost. At this time, she was between the fourth and fifth layer. There was no place for her to stand. The true qi in her body was gradually out of balance. She felt a chill seeping into her bones. A sense of exhaustion arose from the depths of her heart. She suddenly wanted to sleep. So sleepy. No. She couldn't sleep. If she fell asleep, she might not wake up. Gong Yimo pulled herself together to look for things in her space. Medicine bottles appeared in her hands one after another. She didn't care what medicine they were and took a little. She became more and more dizzy. She could only pray that these medicines were useful. She had to go back. She had promised that person that she would go back. Suddenly, Gong Yimo's foot slipped and her whole body was suspended in the air. The intense feeling of weightlessness and panic shocked her. Fortunately, the safety belt on her waist supported her weight. She swayed in the mountain stream but didn't fall. That was close. A wave of dizziness hit her again. Gong Yimo made up her mind and bit the tip of her tongue. Her numb fingertips continued to climb the rock. She couldn't stop. It was very dangerous here. She had to get the Mu Luo gene as soon as possible and go back. She said that she wanted to go back. At this time, the entire Daiyu state was in chaos. Several different people were fighting in the imperial city. When they fought until their eyes were red, they felt that everyone was an enemy and no one could be trusted. The imperial palace was under martial law. This was the last line of defense of the Daiyu state. In order to pull himself together, Emperor Gong took the tiger wolf medicine and forced himself to take charge. In short, he would not let the Daiyu state fall into chaos for the throne unless he died. What's the situation now? Emperor Gong paid close attention to the battle. He never thought that Gong Yimo would bring back the antidote, so he was prepared to die. He also wanted to see who the final winner was. Chang Shi said respectfully. The first prince wanted to force his way into the palace under the guise of purging the emperor's evil ministers, but he was stopped by the ninth prince. The two of them fought several times outside the city. The first prince was defeated and fled, joining forces with the second prince. Gong Dai, he is a wolf cub. But where did the soldiers in his hands come from? I did not give him any troops. Because he was wary of Gong Dai, Gong Qing gave Gong Dai power and status, but did not give others power. Chang Shi lowered his head. Jinshi of Gojoseon has 100,000 soldiers under his command. Those are probably the elites that Jinshi of Gojoseon gave them. Speaking of this, Gong Qing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Should he praise Gong Dai for being able to quietly bring people from the West Continent here, or should he say that Gong Dai was ambitious? After all, secretly crossing the border was not something that could be done overnight. He did not know how long he had been planning this. What about the crown prince? Gong Qing never understood the relationship between Gong Che and Gong Dai. Logically speaking, a person like Gong Dai would not be willing to be under someone else. Why did he support the crown prince after he returned to the imperial court? Chang Shi whispered. The crown prince is breaking the stairway to heaven. Gong Cheng's eyes widened. Then his eyes slowly burst with anger. He actually stayed at the edge of the cliff for a woman. Gong Yimo, she really jumped down. Chang Shi nodded. She jumped down. 10 hours have passed, and her life is unknown. Hearing Chang Shi's words, Gong Qing was suddenly not so angry. Although Gong Che did not fulfill his duty as the crown prince at this time, he and Gong Yimo were working hard for his life. At this moment, Gong Qing thought of many things. On one hand, it was a life and death contest for supreme power. On the other hand, it was a life and death race for the sake of love. Obviously, it should not be, but Gong Cheng's heart still surged with an indescribable feeling. Moreover, he also understood that Gong Che really did not have the heart to become the emperor. Perhaps Gong Che came back this time because of Gong Dai. But when did their relationship become so good? He could only wait for them to return to find out the reason for all of this, if he could really wait for them to return. Your Highness, don't wait any longer. Now that the war has spread to the city, as the crown prince, you should go back and preside over the situation. After another bloody battle, the remaining subordinates knelt down and begged. Not many people from Yunding Mountain died. As a surprise team, with their help, Gong Dai's side would be like a tiger that had grown wings. Seeing that Gong Che did not answer, someone shouted, Your Highness. Please go down the mountain and preside over the situation. You are the crown prince, you are the one who is destined. Daiyu state needs you, and the people of the capital also need you. If it were any other time, Gong Che would definitely go with them. Ever since he was a child, he had received the most orthodox education of a crown prince. He was kind and benevolent. Everything he had learned was about governing the country and making it rich. Ever since he was a child, people had always said that he was the crown prince, and that he carried the country on his back, as well as the hopes of the people. In his previous life, he did do so, but later, he gradually became unwilling. Why did he have to be the crown prince? Why did he have to prioritize the country? Why couldn't he do whatever he wanted? He knew that this thought was very wrong, but from the moment he couldn't control himself and jumped down with Mo in his arms, he knew that he wasn't a person who would prioritize his country. He had a very strong sense of selfishness and personal desires. He wasn't willing to live for others. Or it could be said that he had already lived for his mother, his family, the country, and his father. But in that life, he was not happy, not at all. At this moment, he knew what he should do, but he didn't want to move. The people of the country needed him, and Mo also needed him. Since he had already been selfish once, then he would be selfish to the end. So Gong Che looked at the crowd and calmly gave the order. All soldiers, hear my order. I order you to immediately descend the mountain and lend King Qi a hand. Everyone looked at each other. Someone asked, Your Highness, what about you? I'm not going. Gong Che turned around and looked at the dark cliff. There was a trace of a smile in his eyes. From now on, I am no longer the crown prince. Soon, you will have a new crown prince. That person is more suitable than me. As he spoke, he looked at the people of Yunding Mountain. I hope that everyone can go down the mountain together and help the imperial court. The senior brother of Yunding Mountain nodded. Master ordered us to listen to your highness's orders. We dare not disobey your highness's orders. Qiu Xingfeng jumped out. I'm not going. Grand disciple, you are so weak. I will stay to protect you and wait for my disciple to come up. Gong Che smiled gently. He looked at Qiu Xingfeng and showed kindness for the first time. Okay, we will wait for her together. Chapter 870. After climbing for a long time, the rope ran out. Gong Yimo took out a spare rope from her space. She tried a few times but still couldn't get it into the lock. Her forehead was sweating profusely, and she was about to collapse. At this moment, a sharp whistle came from the clouds. A huge bird flew towards her. Its sharp beak shone with cold light. It tore a wound on Gong Yimo's arm. Gong Emo was caught off guard. Her feet loosened, and her whole body swayed in the air with the help of a safety belt. Without waiting for her to find a place to stand, a few more birds rushed out from the dark. They attacked from all directions with their sharp cries. Their fast speed and black figures were like ghosts in the clouds. Gong Yimo was already dizzy. She didn't have much strength to take out the sword. She killed a few birds with great effort. But after seeing blood, more and more birds appeared. They even attacked the rope cleverly. In the chaos, Gong Yimo was surrounded by a flock of big black birds. She seemed to hear something breaking. Then her body suddenly fell. Her whole body tensed up. Oh no! The rope broke. The speed at which she fell was extremely fast, and in an instant, she had rushed out of the encirclement of the strange birds. If this continued, she would definitely be smashed to pieces. Gong Yimo took out her sword and stabbed it into the cliff. But the sword couldn't bear her weight and broke in an instant. Looking at the broken sword in her hand, was she going to die here? After a long night, daybreak arrived. Qiu Xingfeng moved impatiently. Grand disciple, did Momo really say she could come up in a day? Why hasn't she come up yet? Gong Che sat on the edge of the cliff, motionless like a statue. Hearing this, he turned his head stiffly. His eyes were bloodshot. Qiu Xingfeng didn't notice and said worriedly, she won't be in danger, right? Such a high cliff. He took a closer look and said timidly, "It's such a high cliff. Even I wouldn't dare to go down easily." He was at the 5th level of wind and nature. His words made Gong Chai's face turn even uglier. His hand rubbed against the rough rock bit by bit. Blood flowed out from his wound again, but he was completely unaware. A day had passed. He had been waiting for a day. At this time, a large group of soldiers and horses suddenly came up the mountain. Qiu Xingfeng thought it was the enemy and immediately prepared for battle. However, he did not expect it to be Gong Dai's men. It turned out that one day was enough for the battle at the foot of the mountain to be settled. The great prince was the one behind the scenes. He thought that with the emperor and the crown prince dead, as the eldest son, he would be able to openly inherit the throne. He did not expect that Gong Dai would appear and disrupt all his plans. Then, the emperor and the crown prince did not die. Now that the entire imperial city had fallen into Gong Dai's hands and the first prince had fled in defeat, the only thing Gong Chai needed to do was go back and pacify the people. When the emperor saw that things had calmed down, he could not hold on any longer and fainted. Now, only the crown prince could convince the masses. Therefore, Gong Dai sent people to invite him. Even though he was in power now, it was not the time to change the regime. He still needed Gong Chai to take charge of the situation. Gong Chai shook his head. His voice was extremely hoarse. "Mor is here. I want to wait for her." The person leading the group was Lo Qi. Hearing this, Lo Qi showed a troubled expression. "But the situation now requires you." The situation. Everything he did was built on the foundation of being with Mor. Without her, nothing would exist. Gong Chai closed his eyes and did not speak again. Lo Qi had no choice but to retreat and report back. What was Gong Chai thinking? He did not think of anything. He dared to jump down from here and die with Mor. He was not afraid to jump down again. However, he promised Mor to believe in her. He would wait. When Gong Yimo woke up, she did not know how long she had been unconscious for. At this time, she was in a dark place. She could see that the sky was bright, but she could not tell what time it was. She should have fallen directly to the 5th level. This was bad. The rope was broken, but she did not know where it was broken. How could she go up? Gong Chai was probably waiting anxiously. She moved and suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. It turned out that her arm was broken. Every time she moved, she felt a piercing pain. Trembling, she climbed up and found a branch to stabilize her arm. Then, she ate some food. At this time, she found a very large stone cave behind her. There was a faint light coming from inside. She curiously walked in. The light became brighter and brighter. Soon, she arrived at a very mysterious place. The walls were filled with white glowing crystals. They were stacked layer by layer, making people feel like they were in a world of ice and snow. When she reached the bottom, she saw a person. Moreover, it was a woman. That woman should have died many years ago. However, because of the unique climate here, she did not rot. Instead, she became a dried corpse. A tattered phoenix robe covered her body. Gong Yimo guessed her identity immediately. The empress of the founding emperor and the first person to jump down the stairway to heaven. She did not die. Instead, she fell to the 5th level and finally died here. Yes, she died because her hair was white. It was obvious that she had lived for many years. Gong Yimo saw the place where she died. There were a few lines of words in front of it. Gong Xiuan destroyed my life. I would rather be cut off from the world than meet him again. Xiuan was the founding emperor's courtesy name. How deep was the hatred that she would rather jump off the cliff to seek death? How deep was the hatred that she would rather live on the cliff than meet him again? It was said that the founding empress was highly skilled in martial arts. If she wanted to leave this place, it would not be difficult. Gong Yimo thought of the founding emperor who waited his whole life. The scene in front of her was really a tragedy. She sighed and was about to find a place to rest. However, she saw a lot of raised haystacks behind the founding empress. She curiously ran over to take a look and found that there were eggs buried in the haystacks. Thinking of the strange birds that attacked her in the clouds, Gong Yimo angrily picked up an egg and was about to roast it. However, at this moment, a sharp whistle was heard. A strange bird that was half the height of a person suddenly came out from the dark and stared at her fiercely. Following its cry, more and more strange birds flew in, and all of them looked unfriendly. Gong Yimo held the bird egg and retreated cautiously. "Don't come over, or I will smash it." As she said that, she made a gesture of wanting to throw the egg. All the birds took a step back, as if they were afraid. Gong Yimo remembered that the founding empress had two strange birds, one male and one female. They were very human-like. Could it be that they had reproduced in this nest? Who knew that just as she thought of that, two strange birds suddenly flew out from the group of strange birds. Their heads were almost as tall as Gong Yimo's shoulders. Its body was pitch black, and its eyes shined like obsidian as it stared intently at Gong Yimo. Could it be that they were the Empress's birds? It had been a few hundred years, but they were still not dead. Chapter 871. The two big birds circled Gong Yimo, one on the left and one on the right. Gong Yimo thought for a moment and asked tentatively, "Are you the pets of the Yuan Empress?" The two birds chirped one after another. They were more peaceful and were obviously not as aggressive as the other birds. Gong Yimo was overjoyed when she saw that they seemed to understand her. "Your master's descendant is poisoned. He urgently needs the Muluogen as an antidote. If you can help me pick the Muluogen from the 6th level, I will return the egg to you." The two birds stared at her coldly, not knowing if they understood her. Gong Yimo felt a little silly to talk to two big birds, but she just wanted to try. Thinking of something, Gong Yimo suddenly walked to the Yuan Empress's side and kept her body in her space. Her action directly angered the big birds. They almost instantly made an offensive posture, but Gong Yimo waved her hand and the Empress's body appeared again. One of the strange birds tilted its head, not understanding what was going on. Gong Yimo said, "As long as you give me the Muluogen, which is a red flower as big as a human face, I will bring the Empress's body back for a proper burial." There was a misunderstanding between her and the founding emperor. That emperor died alone because of her. They should be together, right? The biggest black bird stared at Gong Yimo for a moment. Gong Yimo saw something in its eyes, and in the next second, it turned around and flew away. The remaining birds surrounded her. Gong Yimo once again kept the Empress's body in her space. Was this also considered her life-saving asset? To her surprise, she quickly caught a whiff of a strong floral fragrance. That bittersweet fragrance was one of a kind. The big bird chirped at her and then threw the flower on the ground. Gong Yimo picked it up like it was a treasure and said, "I will definitely bury her together with the Yuan Emperor." With that, she retreated step by step. "I hope you won't make things difficult for me." She had poison powder in her space. She hadn't thought about it before, but if they dared to attack her now, she would make them suffer. After carefully placing the eggs on the ground, Gong Yimo slowly retreated. When she realized that they did not chase after her, she heaved a sigh of relief. Gong Yimo took out the only rock climbing tools left in her space. She found the place where she fell and compared it to the one where she fell. She climbed up. She was lucky. After climbing for a while, she found the broken rope that she fell on before. With the lock as a foundation, it was much easier for her to climb up. 4 hours had passed, and she was almost at the 3rd level. At this height, Gong Che should be able to see her fireworks, right? Afraid that he would be worried, Gong Yimo took the time to set off a firework. The sound of fireworks exploding echoed in the mountain stream, as if announcing her return. Chu Xingfeng was the first to hear it. He shook Gong Che twice in excitement, "Grand Disciple. Did you hear that? These were Momo's fireworks. Only the fireworks made by her would have a sharp whistle. Did you hear that? She's telling us that she's safe." This was definitely the best news that Gong Che had heard in the past 2 days. His face exploded with a strange color. It was as if he was ecstatic, but also in disbelief. But before Gong Che could say anything, a group of people suddenly appeared and quickly surrounded them. Gong Che looked up. He didn't expect that the eldest brother who escaped from Gong Dai would appear here. The people that the eldest prince brought quickly fought with Chu Xingfeng. Chu Xingfeng saw the situation and quickly said to Gong Che, "Leave quickly." But Gong Che didn't leave. He watched as the eldest prince approached step by step. The wind blew, and his figure standing at the edge of the cliff was so proud. "Why don't you run?" The eldest prince revealed a sinister smile. "Or do you want to submit to me? As long as you are in my hands, Gong Dai will become that person who is not legitimate. Why don't you come with me?" Gong Che looked up at him. His long hair and blood-stained robes were proof that he had been through a bloody battle. His cracked lips moved as he spoke with a light smile. "When I was young, my martial arts were not as good as my brother's. Today, I might as well try again." Saying this, he slowly raised the sword in his hand. Over there, Chu Xingfeng was fighting against several people. Over here, it was a duel between 2 people. The eldest prince smiled coldly. In his view, Gong Che had always been weak. He was injured and hadn't slept for a day and a night. How could he be his opponent? "Since you don't want a toast, then come drink a forfeit." Saying this, the eldest prince waved his sword and attacked Gong Che. The 2 exchanged blows at the edge of the cliff. It was an unspeakably thrilling scene. The eldest prince didn't expect Gong Che's martial arts to have improved so much. What he didn't expect was that even though the cliff wind was raging, Gong Che wasn't afraid at all. He didn't look at the cliff when he moved. As a result, he was in a passive position. The resistance from his hand grew stronger and stronger. The eldest prince retreated step by step until he stepped on a rock. "You didn't leave because you wanted to guard this rope?" The first prince panted and said, "Since you are disobedient, you can die together with the person tied to this rope." Saying this, he prepared to cut the rope to teach Gong Che a lesson. Who knew that when Gong Che saw this, he would rush over without a care and use his back to block it. The first prince wanted to withdraw, but it was too late. He wanted Gong Che as a person, but he didn't want him dead. In a moment of desperation, Chu Xingfeng risked injury to pull him back. But when he pulled Gong Che away, the sword viciously chopped at the rope. The rope snapped and quickly shrunk towards the cliff. "No!" At that moment, Gong Che's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. His heart-wrenching cry shook the entire cross-sky stairway. He almost chopped off the eldest prince's head with a backhand swing of his sword. Then, without thinking, he rushed down the cliff. Chu Xingfeng hurriedly hugged him. "Hey! You're crazy. That's a cliff. M.O.R. is down there." The rest of the people saw that the eldest prince had died and all ran away. Chu Xingfeng grabbed Gong Che with both hands and refused to let go. "Mo is so powerful. She definitely won't die. Chu Feng didn't know the seriousness of the matter. He simply felt that there was nothing in this world that Mo couldn't do. Gong Chei's eyes were about to bleed. He turned back and asked Chu Feng word by word. Mo climbed with a rope. Tell me that the rope broke. What will happen to her? Tell me. Chu Feng felt that something was wrong. But he couldn't watch Gong Chei die. No matter what, you can't die. If you jump down, will Mo come up? Thinking about it, he pouted and said, Mo is so powerful. Maybe there will be a miracle. Miracle? Gong Chei looked at the bottomless cliff. The rope was long gone. He couldn't see a miracle. The wind grew stronger, chilling his heart. He looked at the cliff and couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. It was a miracle that he could be reborn. Maybe there really would be a miracle. Gong Chei asked the heavens again and again. Would there be a miracle if he believed? Chapter 872. Because the rope was not that long, Gong Yimo could only reach the first rope when she climbed to the second layer. Gong Yimo was very anxious. She lay on the rock and reached for the last rope. As long as she got it, she could climb up in one breath. But at this moment, a huge snake head popped out from one side of the cave. Gong Yimo did not expect that the python that was supposed to be on the third layer would appear here. From this, it could be seen that the inside of the mountain should be connected. She dodged subconsciously. Her whole body hung on the rope and swayed backward. The python saw that it missed and stretched out more of its body to hook her. Gong Yimo hurriedly grabbed a protruding rock behind her and hung in the air with her back against the stone wall. She looked up at the last rope. As long as she could reach it and move faster, the python would not risk its life to fight with her. The python tried a few times but could not reach her, so it retreated. But its eyes kept staring at her, as if it was holding a grudge. Gong Yimo saw that it retreated and did not dare to stay for long. She quickly climbed up. She inched towards the rope bit by bit. She was so close to grabbing it. But at this moment, the stone wall in front of her suddenly broke. A hole suddenly appeared in the mountain. The python opened its bloody mouth to bite her. Gong Yimo was prepared. She grabbed the last rope with one hand and stabbed the python's chin with the other. She stabbed the python's weak point. The python kept moving forward due to inertia. In order to avoid its body, Gong Yimo did not care about her injured hand and desperately climbed up. The python fell down. She was just relieved when she felt that the rope in her hand was getting looser. With a cracking sound, the rope in her hand broke. Then Gong Yimo fell down quickly. Her eyes were full of unwillingness. Why did the rope break? She carefully avoided so many dangers. How could she die here in the end? Gong Chei stood at the edge of the cliff. The anxiety and fear in his heart were getting heavier and heavier. Qiu Xingfeng was afraid that Gong Chei would commit suicide, so he followed him closely. Who knew that Gong Chei would suddenly kneel down? He faced the sky and bowed. The heavens above, the earth below. I, Gong Chei, am crying here. 2 lifetimes of missing each other, 2 lifetimes of waiting, my feelings for Mo are as clear as day. I only hope that the heavens will take pity on me and return her to me. In this third life, I would rather die than miss this opportunity. He kowtowed 3 times, and blood flowed from his forehead. But the pain actually made him gradually sober up. Closing his eyes, he suddenly felt a strange sense of tranquility. He believed her. He really believed her. She would definitely come back because Gong Yimo would never disappoint. Gong Chei seemed to hear some strange cries in his ears. He opened his eyes as if he had sensed something. All he saw was a black cloud covering the top of his head and a strong wind blowing. When he looked closely, it was actually a flock of large black birds. They flapped their wings quickly. Below them, they were holding on to a very dispirited little person. Gong Yimo rubbed her eyes as she was not used to the sudden sunlight. She turned her head and saw Gong Che. She could not help but reveal a relaxed smile. Gong Che, she was in a sorry state, but she was smiling brightly. Are you happy to see me? Gong Che's throat was choked, and he could not say a word. The scene in front of him was unbelievable. One was kneeling at the edge of a cliff, the other was held in the air by a flock of birds. Just like that, their eyes met. If this was not a miracle, then what was? 5 years later, Yunding Mountain. Daoish Chiao. There's no regret in making a move. Gong Qing stopped Qiu Zhongchan's hand that was about to withdraw. He quickly placed a piece and then smiled proudly. Hey, thanks for letting me win. Chang Shi, who was at the side, quickly served fragrant tea and flattered, Master is really amazing. Qiu Zhongchan frowned. It doesn't count, it doesn't count. Let's start again. He snatched the teapot from Chang Shi's hand. I say, as guests, can't you act like a guest? You have something good and you don't even share it with the owner. Gong Cheng laughed heartily. This is the best quality cloud hair. It's only a few taels a year. If you want to drink it, you can, but exchange it with something good. Qiu Zhongchan's face fell. He did not understand why Gong Cheng, who was also an emperor, became so stingy after abdicating. He was also shrewd like a ghost. He had never won a game of chess against him. Gong Yimo heard the two old men's energetic voices from afar and giggled. Husband, it seems that letting Imperial Father come here to recuperate was a wise decision. Imperial Father's complexion is much better than before. Gong Che saw her standing at the top of the hill looking down at the pavilion below. He was frightened. You're pregnant now. You can't stand in a dangerous place. Gong Yimo stuck out her tongue and skipped towards him. Gong Che was so frightened that he quickly threw away the herbs in his hand and went forward to hug her. Don't jump. Don't jump. If you want to do anything, just say it. I'll carry you away. Gong Yimo giggled. Why are you treating me like a porcelain doll? I'm in good health. As she said that, she stuck out her belly proudly with a proud face. Gong Che sighed, but the adoration in his eyes was substantial. Yes, you're in good health. Are you hungry? The kumquat jade snow soup that I made at noon should be ready. How about we go home and have some snacks? Hearing that Gong Che was making delicious food again, Gong Yimo's eyes lit up and she drooled. What are we waiting for? Let's go, let's go. As she said that, she pulled Gong Che and led the way. Gong Che followed behind and could not help but ask her to slow down. The sunset shone on the two and it was indescribably comfortable. After walking for a while, Gong Yimo suddenly turned back to look at Gong Che. She saw that he was full of smiles and was also looking at her. At this time, he had shed all of his ostentatiousness and was wearing simple white clothes. His handsome face was like the best jade, slowly emitting light. It was not dazzling, but it made people unable to take their eyes off him. He was very happy. That kind of happiness made Gong Che different from the inside out. His eyes were like limpid autumn water. When he looked at someone, it was as if he could drown them in it. The current Daiyu state was developing very quickly under Gong Dai's governance. Under Gong Che's suggestion, the four countries had already smoothly established trade relations. Everything was developing in a good direction. Gong Che squeezed Gong Yimo's hand tightly. Seeing that she was looking at him curiously, he suddenly smiled. haven't you always wanted to travel the Jianghu? Gong Yimo nodded, but her face fell very quickly. But I'm pregnant, Gong Che smiled and tapped the tip of her nose. When the child is born, let Imperial Father take care of it. He has nothing to do on Mount Yunding, so he can help us take care of the child. Gong Yimo's eyes were full of joy. Then what about us? Gong Che lowered his head and kissed her gently on the forehead, sighing softly. We'll go wherever you want to go. Gong Yimo's eyes lit up. Husband. You're too good. Gong Che's heart was as sweet as honey when he heard her praise. He lifted their interlocked hands and said slowly, don't worry about it. A life and death contract. Holding your hand, we'll grow old together. I'll be good to you for the rest of my life. What if you have a change of heart? Impossible. What if you have a change of heart? Then I'll be your snack for the rest of my life as punishment. The setting sun elongated their shadows. Not far away, the Cold Star Villa was emitting faint smoke. The entire Mount Yunding was as beautiful as a paradise. Chapter 873. Inside the magnificent palace, a delicate-looking girl pushed away all the exquisite gifts in front of her and laid on the table. Today was her 18th birthday, but every birthday was the same. She was bored to death. Coco, are you unhappy about your birthday? When Gong Qiyu walked in, he saw his sister's unhappy expression. Her little face with a little baby fat was puffed up in anger, and her smooth skin made people want to poke it with their fingers. Brother, Gong Coco showed an even more aggrieved expression. The palace is really too boring. I want to go out and play. Gong Qiyu, who was dressed in a dragon robe, glared at her. You're playing again. Why don't you practice martial arts properly and break through the 9th level as soon as possible so that you can reunite with father and mother? Don't you want to? Gong Coco stuck out her tongue, and her eyes seemed to gather little stars as she looked over. Brother, do you think father and mother really broke through the void and became immortal? What's the world outside the void like? Gong Qiyu patted her little head and said gently, if you want to know, work harder. You're already 18, but you're only at the 3rd level of wind and nature. Mother was already at the 9th level when she was your age. Speaking of this, he was very anxious because he was already at the 8th level. If his sister didn't work harder, he could only delay his search for father and mother indefinitely. Gong Coco stuck out her tongue. She also wanted to, but she learned everything very quickly. She could quickly understand the books left behind by mother and make many useful things. However, when it came to martial arts, her talent was limited. Seeing Gong Coco lower her head, Gong Qiyu sighed. It's okay. Father and mother are doing well anyway. We just have to take care of ourselves. It was strange. Every year during the new year, the siblings would have the same dream. In the dream, their parents would talk to them in a very beautiful place. In the dream, their parents were still as beautiful and handsome as in their memories. Their fingers were interlocked and they leaned on each other. It was as if time could not erase the love between them. Time only made this relationship more fragrant, and happiness overflowed from their hearts to their faces. From their dreams, they found out that their parents had already comprehended the Tao of this world and stepped through the void. Now, they were very happy. They had achieved the immortality that all emperors dreamed of and had become immortal companions. Therefore, the brother and sister both looked forward to it. Both of them put in all their effort to practice martial arts, waiting for the day when they would meet again. Gong Coco gently hugged Gong Qiyu's waist. Brother, it's okay. I've already grown up. When you reach the 9th level, you can go to mother and fight for a place. Otherwise, mother will only remember father and forget Coco after a long time. Gong Qiyu smiled and patted her back. Silly girl, I'll always be waiting for you. Besides, comprehending Tao isn't a simple matter. You can't just reach the 9th level. Don't feel too burdened. Gong Coco nodded sullenly, but she made a decision in her heart. A month later, on the ocean. Gong Coco disguised herself and blended into the merchant ship, preparing to follow the merchant ship to the legendary island. She knew that her brother would not agree, but she had to go. She knew that with her talent, she would never reach the 9th level in this lifetime. She did not want to be a burden to her brother, so she could only find a shortcut. The legendary island was her only hope. The direction was right, but after so long, she did not see any island at all. At night, there was a sudden gust of wind, lightning, and thunder. The ship she was on was thrown around by the waves. Gong Coco was about to vomit, so she ran to the deck to get some air. Unexpectedly, there was a little boy here. He seemed a little seasick, and his face was pale. At this time, it was too dangerous for the little boy to be alone on the deck. Gong Coco was about to remind him, but she did not expect a huge wave to come over and hit the little boy. Be careful. Gong Coco instinctively went forward to protect him. In the end, the little boy was pushed into a cabin by her, but she was swept into the sea by the waves. Sister. She heard the little boy's cry of alarm. Gong Coco wanted to tell him not to be afraid, because she knew how to swim, but she did not expect her leg to cramp at this time. The waves mercilessly drowned her again and again. Gong Coco felt terrified that she might die here. No, how could she die in a place like this? She still wanted to break through the void, she still wanted to see a different world, and her brother, how worried would her brother be about her? But her body could not stop sinking. She widened her eyes, and finally, after a huge wave hit her, she completely fainted. In her sleep, she did not feel suffocated. She seemed to see light, and then a pair of gentle hands pushed her. In a daze, she heard a pleasant female voice. Live well, don't worry about Qiyu, take care of yourself, my daughter. Mother. Her body was wrapped in a gentle force, and she kept rising. In the chaos, she seemed to see a figure falling, but she could not pull that person, and could only let that force push her out of the water. Once out of the water, Gong Coco gasped for breath. She finally regained control of her body. She had almost died just now. But in the next second, she was confused, because when she fell into the water, she was clearly in the sea with a thunderstorm. But when she came out, she was clearly surrounded by a lake. And there were many people dressed strangely on the shore. The moment she came out of the water, a short-haired girl ran over crying. Coco, are you okay? You scared me to death. Why were you in the water for so long? I thought something happened to you. Gong Coco was pulled up in a daze and covered with a towel. At this time, the director walked over, and he also heaved a sigh of relief. Hey, girl, why did you scare people all of a sudden? It's just a scene of falling into the water. You went down and didn't come back up. Shaoli went down to look for you and said that he didn't see anyone. Did you hide on purpose? Gong Coco stared at him, her mind in a mess. What was going on? Wasn't she in the sea? How did she get into the lake all of a sudden? And this person seemed to be talking to her. Filming. She wasn't an opera singer. Seeing that Gong Coco was silent and her face was pale, the director was afraid that something would happen to her, so he mercifully let her go for now. All right. She's fine now. Let's move and film the next one. Then, he glanced at Gong Coco and said to the assistant beside her, take her to rest for a while. Remember to tell me if you can still film today. Yes. Director, sorry to trouble you. The short-haired woman beside Gong Coco hurriedly bowed, looking fearful. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.